I'm Megan, 34, a financial advisor from Boston who should have known better. My younger sister Amanda and I were always different. Me saving birthday money, her spending it before sunset. Despite our contrasting personalities, I never imagined she'd destroy my financial life. When she tearfully begged me to co-sign her extravagant wedding loan, something felt wrong. But family obligation won over financial sense, leading to the $60,000 betrayal that nearly ruined me. Before I tell you how my own sister left me with a massive debt and fled the country, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. Growing up, Amanda was always the hurricane to my calm harbor. 5 years younger than me, she had our parents wrapped around her little finger from day one. Those big blue eyes and perfect golden curls, identical to mine but somehow more effective, could get her out of any trouble. And there was always trouble with Amanda. I remember when she was 7 and I was 12, she broke our mother's favorite vase while dancing around the living room after being explicitly told not to. When Mom came home, Amanda ran to me in tears, begging for help. I ended up saying I'd accidentally knocked it over while vacuuming. It cost me 2 weeks of allowance and a lecture about responsibility, but Amanda's grateful hug made it seem worth it. This became our pattern, Amanda making messes, me cleaning them up. By high school, I had developed a practical approach to life. I worked part-time at the local library, saved for college, and maintained a 4.0 GPA. Meanwhile, Amanda floated through on charm, borrowing money she never repaid and expecting others to solve her problems. Our parents called me the responsible one not as a compliment, but as justification for holding me to higher standards while excusing Amanda's behavior. "Your sister is just free-spirited," Mom would say after Amanda maxed out her first credit card at 18. "Not everyone can be as naturally organized as you." I majored in finance, built a solid career as a financial advisor, and established an emergency fund before even considering luxuries. Amanda bounced between jobs, retail, waitressing, receptionist, never lasting more than a few months before some drama led to her quitting or being fired. Each career change came with a cash flow crisis that inevitably led to my phone ringing. "Megan, I'm only short $800 on rent this month. I'll pay you back when my commission check comes in," was a monthly ritual for a while. The repayments rarely materialized, and when they did, they were partial at best. When Amanda met Ryan 3 years ago, I had just been promoted to senior financial advisor at my firm. She called, unusually excited about a man she'd met at a charity gala she'd attended with a friend. "He's in international business development," she gushed. "He travels all over, Dubai, Singapore, Monaco. And Meg, you should see his car." Ryan Bradford was undeniably charming, tall, impeccably dressed, with a British accent that seemed to fluctuate in intensity depending on who was listening. He took Amanda to expensive restaurants, bought her designer gifts, and within 2 months had whisked her away for weekends in his supposed vacation homes in Miami and Lake Tahoe. What bothered me wasn't his wealth, it was the vagueness around it. When I asked what his company did, the answers were all jargon and no substance. Luxury asset management, private client acquisition, international capital development. Amanda either didn't notice or didn't care that these phrases meant nothing. "Not everyone needs to analyze everything to death, Megan," she snapped when I gently suggested learning more about his business. "Some people just know how to enjoy life." Our parents were enchanted by Ryan. He sent flowers to our mother and rare whiskey to our father. He called them by endearing nicknames and promised to take them on his company's yacht someday. When I expressed concerns during a family dinner, my father actually shushed me. "For once, Amanda has found someone with ambition," he said. "Don't ruin this with your pessimism." So I backed off, watching from a distance as Amanda and Ryan's relationship progressed at lightning speed. They moved into a luxury apartment downtown after just 6 months, a place Amanda definitely couldn't afford on her boutique sales associate salary, and I doubted Ryan could sustain either, despite appearances. The engagement announcement came via a professionally photographed Instagram post, Amanda displaying an enormous diamond ring on a private beach somewhere, Ryan kissing her cheek, champagne flutes in the foreground. The caption read, "I said yes to forever with my prince. Wedding planning starts now. Hashtag future Mrs. Bradford, hashtag dream come true." The phone calls started immediately. Amanda wanted me as her maid of honor, which touched me despite our complicated relationship. Then came daily messages about venue options, florists, photographers, and increasingly extravagant ideas. "Ryan says we should just do what makes us happy and figure out the money later," she told me one evening. Her voice had that familiar tone, the one that preceded a request for help. My phone rang at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. Amanda was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Everything's falling apart, Meg. The wedding planner says we need deposits this week or we'll lose our date. Can we meet for lunch? Please, I need your help." Despite the warning bells clanging in my head, I agreed to meet her at an upscale restaurant downtown. Little did I know I was walking into a carefully orchestrated performance designed to separate me from my financial security. The restaurant Amanda chose for our lunch meeting should have been my first red flag. Costello's was one of Boston's most expensive Italian restaurants, where a plate of pasta easily ran $50. She was already seated at a corner table when I arrived, sipping champagne and looking suspiciously composed for someone who had been sobbing on the phone hours earlier. "Meg, thank you so much for coming." She jumped up to hug me, wafting designer perfume. "I ordered you a glass of champagne too." "It's a workday, Amanda," I said, but sat down anyway. "What's this emergency about your wedding deposits?" Instead of answering, she pulled out an iPad and launched into a presentation. Actual slides with photos, budgets, and timelines appeared as she swiped through her wedding vision. The venue was a private beach resort in Bali. The guest list included 100 people who would all be flown in and accommodated for a week-long celebration. There would be welcome bags with locally sourced gifts, a rehearsal dinner on a chartered yacht, and a farewell brunch with elephant rides. "The total is just under $60,000, she concluded, as if announcing she needed to borrow $20. "But it's an investment in our future. Ryan says starting our marriage in such a magical place will set the tone for our entire lives together." I nearly choked on my water. $60,000? Amanda, that's insane. Most people don't spend that on a down payment for a house. Her smile faltered slightly. "Ryan and I want to do this right. We only plan to get married once. Where is this money coming from?" "I thought you needed help with deposits." Here came the performance. Amanda's eyes welled up perfectly, enough for vulnerability, not enough to smudge her mascara. "That's what I needed to talk to you about. Ryan's investments are all tied up right now, something about a holding period before a major return. And my credit isn't great because of some mistakes in college." She reached across the table to grab my hand. "We need a loan, and the bank will approve it if you co-sign. Just until Ryan's investments mature in a few months." "You want me to co-sign a $60,000 loan for your destination wedding?" I pulled my hand away. "Amanda, that's completely irresponsible. What about a nice local venue? Or waiting until you've saved? This isn't just any wedding." Her voice rose, drawing glances from nearby tables. "This is my one chance to have everything perfect. Ryan's business associates will be there, people who could make or break his career. We can't look cheap." "It's not about looking cheap. It's about living within your means." The tears flowed freely now. "You've always had everything together. Your perfect job, your perfect apartment, your perfect credit score. You have no idea what it's like to want something so badly and have everyone tell you you can't have it. That's not fair. What's not fair is having a sister who could help but chooses not to." She was fully crying now. "You know what Mom said when I told her about our lunch?" She said, Don't get your hopes up. Megan always thinks she knows best. She was right. A familiar guilt crept over me, the same feeling I'd had when taking blame for the broken vase 22 years earlier. Before I could respond, Amanda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and passed it to me. "It's Dad," she sniffled. I took the phone reluctantly. "Hello, Megan." My father's disappointed voice came through. "Your mother just called me in tears about how you're refusing to help your sister on the most important day of her life. Dad, she's asking me to co-sign a massive loan for an extravagant wedding in Bali. It's financially irresponsible." "It's her wedding day," he replied, as if that justified any expense. "When did you become so cold?" "Family supports family, Megan. Your sister would do it for you in a heartbeat." We both knew that wasn't true, but arguing was pointless. After 10 minutes of guilt-tripping, I promised to think about options, just to end the call. Amanda's tears dried instantly. "So you'll do it?" Her hopeful smile made me feel simultaneously manipulated and needed. "I didn't say that. I said I'd look into options." "This is a huge liability, Amanda. If you and Ryan can't pay, I'm on the hook for all of it." "We'll pay. Ryan's investments are rock solid. He showed me the projections. We're talking 6-figure returns by year-end." She pulled out her phone to show me a slick-looking chart with impressive upward trajectories. Having advised actual investors, I recognized the chart as meaninglessly generic. "What exactly is he investing in?" "Some technology thing in Singapore. I don't understand all the details, but the important thing is that we'll have the money to repay everything with interest." She leaned forward. "I'll even put it in writing. Whatever makes you comfortable." The waiter arrived with our entrees. I realized Amanda had ordered for both of us, including a $75 truffle pasta I hadn't asked for. "Just say yes," she pleaded. "I promise you won't regret it. You'll be the hero of my perfect day." I sighed, feeling the weight of family expectation crushing my financial common sense. "I'm not saying yes. I'm saying I'll investigate legitimate options that protect both of us." Amanda squealed and clapped as if I'd fully committed. "I knew you'd come through. You're the best sister ever." As she babbled excitedly about flower arrangements and bridesmaids' dresses, I pushed my overpriced pasta around my plate, already calculating how to minimize the damage from what I feared would be a catastrophic mistake. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every financial alarm bell in my professional arsenal was ringing at maximum volume. I'd spent my career advising people specifically against this type of financial entanglement. Yet here I was, contemplating the very mistake I warned clients about daily. By morning, I'd made a decision. If, and it was still a big if, I were to help Amanda, I would treat this like the high-risk transaction it was. No family discount on due diligence. No relaxed terms because of blood relation. I called Jessica Chin, a law school friend who specialized in contract law. We met for coffee that afternoon. "Let me get this straight," Jessica said after I explained the situation. "Your unemployed sister and her vaguely employed fiancé want you to co-sign a $60,000 loan for a destination wedding in Bali?" "She's not unemployed. She works at that boutique on Newberry Street." Jessica gave me a look. "Part-time retail doesn't support luxury weddings, Megan. You know this." "I know," I sighed. "But she's my sister, and my parents are pressuring me. If I say no, I'm the villain who ruined Amanda's dream wedding. And if you say yes without protection, you're the sucker paying off a massive loan while they post beach photos on Instagram," Jessica countered. "Look, if you're determined to do this, let's minimize your risk." For the next 3 hours, we drafted what Jessica called a family loan agreement with teeth. It included a formal acknowledgement that Amanda and Ryan were the primary borrowers, with me as the guarantor only, a repayment schedule with specific due dates, a requirement for collateral to secure the loan, triggers that would convert the loan to different terms if they defaulted, a clause requiring Amanda and Ryan to carry life and disability insurance, naming me as beneficiary for the loan amount, legal jurisdiction in Massachusetts, where we were, rather than in their state. A requirement for financial transparency, including quarterly statements of their income and assets. Most importantly, Jessica said, highlighting a section, we're adding this clause about collateral. What does your sister own that's valuable? I thought for a moment. She inherited our grandmother's jewelry collection. It's worth at least $40,000. Perfect. We'll specify that as collateral, with a provision that ownership transfers to you if they miss more than 3 payments. There was also a key provision buried in the legal language. If they defaulted, I would gain the right to pursue any of their assets, regardless of location or how they were titled. Jessica called it the no hiding money clause. This might seem extreme, Jessica cautioned, but if they're legitimate, they'll have no problem agreeing to these terms. If they balk, you have your answer about their intentions. Armed with the agreement, I requested a meeting at Amanda and Ryan's apartment that weekend. Their place was impeccably decorated with what appeared to be designer furniture, original artwork, and the latest electronics, all warning signs considering their purported temporary cash flow issues. Ryan answered the door in casual clothes that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. The financial guru arrives, he announced with his fluctuating British accent. Amanda's just finishing a call with the wedding planner. Champagne? No thanks. I'd like to keep a clear head for this discussion. His smile faltered slightly. All business, aren't you? Amanda said you were the serious one. Amanda emerged from the bedroom, phone in hand. The florist found peonies that can be flown in from New Zealand. Oh, Megan, you brought paperwork. She eyed the folder in my hand with visible disappointment. Yes, I've drafted an agreement for the loan. Ryan laughed. An agreement? Between family? Seems rather formal, doesn't it? It's exactly because we're family that we need clear terms, I replied. I've seen too many relationships destroyed by financial misunderstandings. I laid out the contract, explaining each provision. Amanda's eyes glazed over almost immediately, but Ryan studied it with increasing discomfort. Life insurance? Collateral? Quarterly financial statements. He scoffed. This reads like you don't trust us. It reads like a standard loan agreement, I corrected. Anyone borrowing this amount of money would sign similar terms with a bank. Amanda pouted. But you're not a bank. You're my sister. Which is why I want our relationship protected. This ensures we all understand our obligations. Ryan flipped through the pages, frowning at the collateral section. Amanda's jewelry? That's a family heirloom, which remains hers as long as you make the payments, I pointed out. The collateral is just insurance. They exchanged glances. Amanda looked ready to throw a tantrum, but Ryan suddenly shifted tactics. You know what? I respect this, he said, his tone smoothing. It shows you're as serious about business as I am. We have nothing to hide, and we fully intend to repay every penny. He took the pen from my hand and signed with a flourish, then passed it to Amanda. Sign it, darling. Your sister is just being prudent. Amanda signed reluctantly, barely glancing at the pages. I noticed Ryan hadn't actually read the fine print either, particularly the sections about jurisdiction and the right to pursue hidden assets. Their overconfidence worked in my favor. I'll have these notarized and file the loan application tomorrow, I said, tucking the signed agreement into my folder. Assuming approval, you should have the funds within 2 weeks. As I left their apartment, relief and dread battled within me. I'd done everything possible to protect myself, but a nagging voice whispered that I'd just signed up for a world of trouble. That night, I made copies of the agreement, stored the original in my safe deposit box, and tried to silence the worry keeping me awake. 2 weeks later, the loan was approved. I watched the $60,000 transfer into Amanda's account with a knot in my stomach. She immediately sent me a photo of her and Ryan toasting with champagne, captioned, "Wedding planning officially in full swing. Love you, sis." I forced myself to respond positively, even as I added a calendar reminder for the first repayment date, 3 months after the wedding. What I didn't know then was that I should have been counting down to a betrayal rather than a repayment. The Bali wedding was every bit as extravagant as Amanda had planned. The resort was stunning. Private villas for guests, infinity pools overlooking the Indian Ocean, staff who remembered everyone's names and drink preferences. Under different circumstances, I might have enjoyed the luxury. Instead, I found myself mentally calculating the cost of each centerpiece, each bottle of champagne, each custom-made favor. As maid of honor, I stood beside Amanda in photos, smiling while thinking of the loan documents locked in my safe deposit box back home. The ceremony took place at sunset on the beach, Amanda radiant in a designer gown that definitely hadn't been included in the original budget we'd discussed. Ryan looked the part of successful businessman, charming everyone with stories of his international deals and future plans. I noticed, however, that whenever someone asked specific questions about his business, he'd deftly change the subject or pull them toward the bar for another drink. During the reception, I stepped away to use the restroom and overheard Ryan speaking with a man I didn't recognize in a secluded corner of the garden. "Everything's in place," the man said quietly. "The Cayman account is set up under the Shell company name." "Perfect timing," Ryan replied. "We'll move everything offshore after the honeymoon. No point raising flags with unusual activity right before the wedding." "What about her sister?" "I heard she's some financial advisor." Ryan laughed. "Megan? She thinks she's clever with her little contract, but she has no idea what's coming. By the time she figures it out, we'll be long gone." I froze, heart pounding. Before I could process what I'd heard, they noticed me and immediately shifted to loud, casual conversation about golf courses. I returned to the reception, trying to act normal while my mind raced. Should I confront them now? Call the police? But what crime had actually been committed? They'd signed a loan agreement and hadn't yet missed any payments. I considered pulling Amanda aside, but realized with a sinking feeling that she was likely complicit. The way she'd avoided eye contact when signing the agreement, her sudden lavish spending beyond even the wedding budget, she knew exactly what was happening. For the remaining 3 days of the wedding celebration, I maintained my maid of honor smile while documenting everything. I took photos of their gifts, kept a list of vendors and amounts, and noted every comment about future plans. If my suspicions were correct, I'd need all the evidence I could gather. The first month after the wedding, Amanda and Ryan posted daily photos from their extended honeymoon, first Bali, then Singapore, then the Maldives. Each location seemed more luxurious than the last. When I texted to check when they'd be home, Amanda replied vaguely about extending their trip while Ryan meets with investors. The first loan payment came due. Nothing arrived in my account. When I called Amanda, she answered with obvious irritation. "Oh, we're just sorting out some banking issues with the time zone differences. You know how it is. The money will be there next week." Next week came and went. No payment. My follow-up texts received increasingly delayed and dismissive responses. By the second missed payment, panic set in. I called my parents, who seemed unconcerned. "They're just settling into married life," my mother said. "I'm sure they'll sort it out soon. Don't be so rigid about the dates." The third month brought a complete communication breakdown. Amanda stopped answering my calls entirely. Her social media still showed regular posts, rooftop bars in unknown cities, shopping bags from luxury brands, sunset cocktails, but no responses to my increasingly urgent messages. I decided to visit their apartment, only to find new tenants moving in. The building manager informed me that Amanda and Ryan had terminated their lease the week after the wedding. That evening, I received a text from an unknown international number. "Should have trusted your financial instincts, sis. Thanks for the wedding. Consider it your gift to us. Face-blowing kiss, don't bother looking for us. We've relocated somewhere without extradition. Enjoy the payments. Love, A+R." Minutes later, Amanda posted a photo on Instagram, she and Ryan laughing on a private jet, champagne flutes in hand. The caption read, starting our new life where no one can rain on our parade. Sometimes you have to leave the past and all its troubles behind. Hashtag new beginnings, hashtag no looking back. The bank called the next day. The loan was officially in default, and as co-signer, I was now responsible for the full amount plus accumulating interest. $60,000 of debt for a sister who had planned her escape all along. As I stared at the formal notice from the bank, the magnitude of Amanda's betrayal crashed over me. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a temporary inability to pay. This was calculated fraud from the beginning, with me as the designated victim. The first collection notice arrived on crisp bank letterhead, clinical and devastating. As cosigner on loan number 847291, you are responsible for the outstanding balance of $60,000 plus accrued interest of $1,248.32. Immediate payment is required to prevent further action. I called the bank, explained the situation, and was met with professional sympathy that offered no actual relief. I understand your frustration, Ms. Harper, but legally you're responsible for this debt. Perhaps you could provide contact information for the primary borrowers. Each morning, I woke with a weight on my chest that made it difficult to breathe. My perfect credit score, built over years of careful financial management, plummeted. The debt appeared on my credit report like a neon sign warning lenders away from me. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Night after night, I lay awake calculating and recalculating my finances, trying to find a way to absorb this blow without liquidating my retirement accounts, a move that would trigger penalties and taxes, compounding the damage. My parents' reaction only deepened the wound. When I called to tell them about Amanda's text and disappearance, my father actually chuckled. That sounds like Amanda being dramatic. She's probably just traveling with Ryan for his business. I'm sure they'll sort out the payments when they settle somewhere. Dad, they terminated their lease. They told me they've gone somewhere without extradition. They're running from this debt intentionally. My mother sighed. Megan, you've always been so black and white about things. Amanda has a different approach to life. Give her time to figure this out. Their denial was staggering. Decades of enabling Amanda had left them incapable of seeing her actions clearly, even when the evidence was overwhelming. I realized with bitter clarity that I was entirely alone in this crisis. At work, my performance suffered. How could I advise clients on financial security when I'd failed so spectacularly to protect my own? In client meetings, I found myself struggling to focus, my mind constantly returning to calculations of how many years it would take to pay off Amanda's debt. My boss, Patricia, called me into her office after I fumbled through a presentation with a major client. Megan, is everything all right? This isn't like you. I considered a vague excuse, but opted for honesty. I'm dealing with a personal financial crisis. My sister and her husband convinced me to co-sign a large loan, then left the country without paying. Patricia's expression shifted from concern to shock. How much are we talking about? $60,000. Her sharp intake of breath said everything. Have you consulted a lawyer? I've spoken with 3. They all say the same thing. As co-signer, I'm legally responsible. My sister and her husband chose their destination specifically because it has no extradition treaty with the U.S. Take tomorrow off, Patricia said finally. Get your head straight. This firm needs the Megan Harper who impresses clients, not this distracted version. Her words stung but weren't unfair. I was failing professionally just as I had failed personally. The lowest point came when I had to cancel my vacation plans, a trip I'd been saving for over 2 years, to redirect those funds toward the loan payments. Sitting alone in my apartment, cancellation confirmations filling my inbox, I allowed myself one evening of complete breakdown. I cried until my eyes swelled, screamed into pillows, and cursed Amanda's name. By morning, exhausted but clearer, I made 3 decisions. First, I would not let this destroy my career. Second, I would find a way to make Amanda and Ryan face consequences. Third, I would never, ever allow family manipulation to override my financial judgment again. I scheduled meetings with 5 different lawyers specializing in international debt collection. Gave me virtually identical advice. Pay the debt, learn the lesson, move on. The 5th, Eleanor Bates, asked a question none of the others had. Did you include any special provisions in your agreement with your sister? I provided her with a copy of the contract Jessica had helped me draft. As Eleanor read through it, her expression gradually shifted from professional neutrality to surprised approval. This is unusually thorough for a family loan, she remarked. Particularly these clauses about collateral, jurisdiction, and the right to pursue hidden assets regardless of location. My friend is a contract lawyer. She helped me draft it. Eleanor set down the document and looked at me directly. MS. Harper, your sister and her husband may have chosen a non-extradition country, but they've made a critical error. According to your agreement, Massachusetts law governs this contract, and the collateral clause is immediately enforceable upon default. The jewelry collection, I said, remembering. It's at my parents' house. That's just the beginning, Eleanor continued. This contract gives you the right to pursue any assets they own, anywhere. The challenge will be finding those assets, but I have colleagues who specialize in exactly that. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. That hope transformed into determination when I logged into Instagram that evening and saw Amanda's latest post, a sunset view from what appeared to be a penthouse apartment in Dubai, her hand sporting a new diamond bracelet alongside her enormous engagement ring. The caption read, "Home sweet new home. #bless life, #living our best life." Dubai. They'd chosen Dubai. I immediately returned to my computer and began researching. Dubai had no extradition treaty with the US for financial crimes, but it had robust property and banking systems that left paper trails. More importantly, it had legal cooperation agreements with many countries, including the US, for civil matters like debt collection. I called Eleanor first thing the next morning. They're in Dubai. I can prove it from their social media. Dubai, she repeated thoughtfully. That actually works in our favor. I know exactly who to contact. As Eleanor outlined our counterattack strategy, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Amanda and Ryan had significantly underestimated what they were up against. They thought they were dealing with a heartbroken sister who would simply accept her fate. Instead, they were about to face a financial professional with a meticulously crafted contract and a determination forged in betrayal. Eleanor wasted no time assembling what she called our recovery team. Within days, she had engaged a digital forensic specialist and an international collection agency with specific expertise in Dubai and a private investigator who specialized in asset tracking. The first step, Eleanor explained during our strategy meeting, is securing the assets we know about, starting with that jewelry collection. I dreaded confronting my parents, but knew it was necessary. I arrived at their suburban home on a Sunday afternoon, Eleanor's legal documents in hand. My mother's surprise at seeing me quickly turned to suspicion when she noticed my serious expression. "What's wrong, Megan? You look terrible." "I need to talk to you and Dad about Amanda. It's important." My father emerged from his study, greeting me with a distracted half-hug before settling into his favorite armchair. "If this is about that loan business, Amanda called yesterday. Said there's been a misunderstanding and she's working it out." My heart jumped. "She called you? Did she give you her number?" No. It was a quick call." He waved dismissively. "She said not to worry, that she and Ryan have investments maturing soon." I placed the default notices from the bank on the coffee table. There's no misunderstanding. Amanda and Ryan have fled to Dubai and explicitly told me they never intend to repay this loan. They've left me with $60,000 of debt, and it's growing with interest every day. My mother shook her head. "That doesn't sound like Amanda." "I have the text messages, Mom, and their social media is full of pictures from Dubai, bragging about their new life." My father leaned forward, finally looking concerned. What do you need from us? Grandmother's jewelry collection. The loan agreement Amanda signed lists it as collateral. I'm legally entitled to take possession of it now. The atmosphere in the room chilled instantly. My mother's hand flew to her throat. That jewelry is Amanda's inheritance. We're holding it for her until they buy a proper safe for their new place. Amanda used that inheritance as loan security, then defaulted on the loan, I said firmly. I have the legal right to claim it, and I have a court order to do so. I placed the document on top of the default notices. My father picked it up, scanning it with growing alarm. This is serious, Claire, he said to my mother. This is a legal seizure order. My mother began to cry. But those pieces have been in our family for generations. Your grandmother wanted Amanda to have them for her future children. And Amanda gambled them away, I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. She signed them over as collateral for a loan she never intended to repay. I didn't want this either, but I'm the one left paying for her wedding while she posts pictures of her luxury apartment in Dubai. After 2 hours of emotional discussion, my parents reluctantly led me to their bedroom safe. Inside, wrapped in velvet pouches, was my grandmother's collection. An Art Deco diamond necklace, sapphire earrings, several brooches, and an heirloom watch. My mother sobbed as she handed each piece to me. I'll provide a detailed receipt, I said, trying to maintain professional distance despite my own emotions. These will be kept secure until the debt is resolved. As I prepared to leave, my father stopped me at the door. Can we see those messages? The ones where Amanda said she's not paying. I pulled up the text on my phone and handed it to him. He read it silently, then showed it to my mother. Something shifted in their expressions, the first crack in their unwavering defense of Amanda. We raised her better than this, my father said quietly, looking suddenly older. The jewelry appraisal confirmed what I'd estimated. The collection was worth approximately $40,000. A significant portion of the debt, but not all of it. For the remainder, we would need to find other assets. Our digital forensics specialist, Marcus, worked magic with Amanda and Ryan's social media presence. They're not just posting pretty pictures, he explained, showing me his findings. They're inadvertently documenting their assets and movements. From their Instagram posts alone, Marcus identified their specific location in Dubai, a luxury high-rise in the Marina district. Ryan's new vehicle, a high-end sports car visible in several backgrounds. Multiple luxury purchases, tagged designer items. Travel patterns suggesting regular business in Abu Dhabi. More importantly, he found connections to Ryan's business ventures. Your brother-in-law isn't as clever as he thinks. He's registered several companies in Dubai's free zones. They're thinly disguised versions of the same shell companies he mentioned in that conversation you overheard at the wedding. Eleanor used this information to file legal claims in both U.S. and UAE courts. The Massachusetts judgment was relatively straightforward, based on the clear contract terms. The international enforcement required specialized knowledge, which is where Nasir, our Dubai-based collection specialist, proved invaluable. UAE courts respect foreign judgments when proper procedures are followed, Nasir explained in our video conference. The key is demonstrating the legitimate basis of the claim and following UAE legal protocols precisely. While these legal wheels turned, my private investigator uncovered something unexpected. Ryan had a pattern of similar schemes. 2 previous girlfriends had filed complaints about financial fraud, though both cases had been settled quietly. More significantly, he had business associates in Miami who were currently under investigation for wire fraud. Your brother-in-law isn't just running from your loan, the investigator told me. He's likely running from several potential criminal charges. This discovery led us to collaborate with other victims. Through carefully worded inquiries in financial fraud support forums, we connected with 3 other individuals who had been defrauded by Ryan under various business pretexts. Pooling our information strengthened everyone's cases. For months into our counterattack, the first real victory came. A UAE court froze a Dubai bank account belonging to one of Ryan's shell companies. The balance, $78,000. That same day, I received a furious message from Amanda. "What the hell are you doing? Someone just showed up at our apartment with court papers. How did you even find us?" I waited a full day before responding. "I'm collecting on a legally binding debt, Amanda. The loan you signed for and promised to repay. This is insane. You're ruining our lives over a stupid loan? We're family." "Yes, we are family. Which is why your betrayal hurts so much more. The bank doesn't care about our relationship. They just want their money. So do I. We don't have this kind of money just sitting around. Ryan's investments are all tied up right now. Then I suggest you start liquidating assets. The jewelry collection has already been claimed, but that only covers part of the debt." Her next message revealed her panic. "The jewelry. You took grandmother's jewelry? Mom and Dad let you. They didn't have a choice. It was legal collateral that you offered in a contract you signed." The messages stopped abruptly. Hours later, my mother called, distraught. "Amanda says you're sending people after them in Dubai. That you've frozen their money and they can't pay their rent. I'm legally pursuing assets that belong to me based on a contract Amanda willingly signed," I explained calmly. "If they're struggling financially, they have plenty of luxury items they can sell. But they have to live somewhere, Megan. They should have thought of that before committing fraud, Mom." Our next move targeted their Dubai apartment. We discovered it was leased under one of Ryan's company names, the same company whose bank account we'd frozen. With Nasir's help, we filed to redirect the lease payments to partially satisfy the debt. Amanda's social media presence changed dramatically. The luxury lifestyle posts disappeared, replaced by vague inspirational quotes about weathering storms and facing unexpected challenges. One particularly telling post showed her designer handbag collection with the caption, "Parting with some treasures. DM for prices. Hashtag fresh start, hashtag unexpected changes." The real breakthrough came when Ryan's business partner, alarmed by the mounting legal pressure, reached out to save himself. He provided documentation of hidden accounts in Singapore and the Cayman Islands, accounts holding substantial sums from what appeared to be various fraudulent schemes. "Your brother-in-law has been running investment scams for years," Eleanor told me after reviewing the evidence. "What he did to you is just one small part of a much larger operation." With this new information, we expanded our legal claims and involved regulatory authorities. Singapore's strict banking regulations worked in our favor, allowing for accounts to be frozen pending investigation. 9 months after beginning our counterattack, I received a formal settlement offer from Amanda and Ryan's newly hired attorney. They would pay the full loan amount plus interest and my legal fees in exchange for dropping all claims and investigations. "They're running scared," Eleanor observed. "They know if the fraud investigations continue, Ryan could face criminal charges." "Should I accept?" I asked. "That depends on what you want, Megan. If it's just the money, this offer covers everything you're owed. If it's justice." I thought about the sleepless nights, the damaged credit score, the professional embarrassment, the family turmoil. The money will do. But I want it all up front, no payment plans. And I want a formal admission of what they did. The final settlement arrived 2 weeks later, a wire transfer for the full amount plus legal fees, and a signed statement acknowledging the intentional default. Amanda and Ryan admitted no criminal wrongdoing, but confirmed they had knowingly relocated to avoid loan repayment obligations. My final communication from Amanda came via email rather than social media. "I hope you're satisfied. You've destroyed the life we were building. Ryan and I have separated. His business associates have all abandoned him since your investigators started poking around. I'm coming back to the States next month. I don't expect you to meet me at the airport." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Receiving the settlement funds brought a complex mix of emotions. The relief of financial recovery was undeniable. My credit score would recover, and my savings remained intact. Yet the victory felt hollow when weighed against the complete destruction of my relationship with Amanda. The first thing I did was repay the bank loan in full. Watching the balance drop to zero provided a satisfaction that was both sweet and bitter. Next came reimbursements to my legal team, whose expertise had made recovery possible. The remaining sum, roughly $15,000, I placed in a separate account, uncertain what to do with money that felt tainted by betrayal. 3 weeks after the settlement, my parents called to ask if I would join them for dinner. I agreed with reluctance, unsure what to expect. When I arrived at their home, the atmosphere was markedly different from our last encounter. My father looked tired, my mother subdued. "We owe you an apology," my father began once we were seated. "We've spent Amanda's entire life making excuses for her behavior. We failed both of you by not holding her accountable." My mother reached across the table for my hand. "When Amanda called us last week, she tried to blame you for everything, said you were vengeful and cruel. But we've had months to think about what happened. You showed us the text messages, the social media posts. She planned this, didn't she?" "Yes," I said simply. "She and Ryan never intended to repay the loan. They saw me as an easy target because I've always cleaned up her messes." My father nodded slowly. "We enabled that pattern." "I'm sorry, Megan." This long overdue acknowledgement unlocked something within me. For the first time, I shared the full weight of what being the responsible one had meant, how I'd spent my life in Amanda's shadow, expected to succeed without praise while simultaneously serving as her safety net. "I never wanted to see Amanda fail," I explained. "I just wanted her to take responsibility for her own choices." "She's coming home next month," my mother said carefully. "Ryan apparently left Dubai after their separation. She says she has nowhere else to go." The unspoken question hung between us. Would I be part of Amanda's inevitable redemption attempt? "I need time," I said finally. "I'm not ready to forgive her yet." They accepted this without argument, another first in our family dynamic. At work, my professional reputation not only recovered but strengthened. Patricia called me into her office 6 months after the settlement. "The Wilsons specifically requested you as their advisor," she said, referring to a high-net-worth client family. "They said after hearing how you handled your own financial crisis, they trust your judgment implicitly." I was momentarily confused. How did they hear about my situation? From me, Patricia admitted. During a discussion about advisor resilience. "I hope you don't mind, but your story demonstrates something important. Financial advisors who've faced and overcome their own challenges bring valuable perspective." This conversation sparked an unexpected opportunity. Over lunch, Patricia suggested I develop a seminar series on family financial entanglements. There's a real need for guidance on navigating loans to family members, co-signing agreements, joint ventures with relatives. Your experience gives you credibility most advisors lack. The idea resonated deeply. Within weeks, I had outlined a comprehensive program, Family Finance, protecting relationships and assets when money and blood mix. The firm approved it as a special offering for existing clients, then expanded it due to overwhelming interest. Leading these seminars introduced me to dozens of people with similar stories, parents who had co-signed loans for children who never repaid, siblings left handling family business debts, grandparents whose retirement savings were decimated by family borrowing. Their experiences validated mine while providing a purpose for the pain I'd endured. Through a seminar attendee, I connected with a support group for victims of financial betrayal. Initially reluctant to attend, my professional persona felt at odds with the vulnerability of a support group. I finally went to a meeting 6 months after the settlement. The connections I formed there became instrumental in my healing process. Unlike my colleagues who respected my experience but couldn't truly understand it, these people knew exactly how financial betrayal corrodes trust and identity. Gina, a retired teacher whose son had stolen her life savings, became a close friend. The money is bad enough, she told me during one of our coffee meetings. But the betrayal by someone you love, that's what keeps you awake at night. I nodded, recognizing the precise ache she described. How did you move forward? By accepting that forgiveness and reconciliation are separate things, she said thoughtfully. I've forgiven my son for my own peace. But I haven't allowed him back into my financial life, and I never will. Her wisdom guided me when Amanda finally returned to Boston. True to her word, she contacted our parents first, moving temporarily into their guest room. After 2 weeks of what my mother described as soul-searching conversations, Amanda asked if I would meet her. We agreed on neutral territory, a quiet cafe midway between our locations. Seeing her was jarring. The designer clothes and perfect makeup were gone, replaced by a simpler, subdued appearance. She looked simultaneously older and younger, like a version of the sister I'd known before Ryan. Thank you for coming, she began, voice small. I know you probably hate me. I don't hate you, Amanda. I don't recognize you. She nodded, eyes downcast. I barely recognize myself. Everything happened so fast with Ryan. He made it all seem exciting and glamorous, breaking rules, taking shortcuts. By the time I realized how deep we were in his schemes, it felt too late to back out. It's never too late to do the right thing, I said. You could have come to me before it all collapsed. I was ashamed. And afraid you'd say, I told you so. I probably would have, I admitted. Before offering to help you anyway. That was our pattern. She looked up, tears forming. I've destroyed that pattern, haven't I? Along with your trust. Yes. Can we ever fix this? She asked. I considered the question carefully, thinking of Gina's distinction between forgiveness and reconciliation. I'm working on forgiveness, Amanda. Reconciliation will take longer and depends on your actions, not your words. We talked for nearly 3 hours. She shared the ugly dissolution of her relationship with Ryan, who had apparently moved on to a new mark in Singapore. I shared how her betrayal had affected my life, personally and professionally. We cried, occasionally laughed at the absurdity of it all, and parted with cautious warmth but no false promises. In the years since that conversation, Amanda has been working to rebuild her life on firmer foundations. She found a job in retail management, moved into a modest apartment, and began therapy. We meet monthly for coffee, carefully rebuilding a relationship fundamentally different from our previous dynamic. The settlement money that I'd set aside eventually found its purpose. I established a small foundation providing financial literacy education for young adults, focusing particularly on setting healthy monetary boundaries in personal relationships. The irony isn't lost on me. My sister's betrayal ultimately funded an initiative to prevent similar situations for others. My own boundaries have transformed completely. I no longer automatically rush to solve family problems. When my father recently hinted about retirement concerns, I provided information on financial advisors specializing in retirement planning rather than taking on the burden myself. Perhaps the most profound change has been internal. The experience forced me to examine why I had allowed myself to be manipulated despite all my professional knowledge. Through therapy, I recognized how deeply I'd tied my identity to being the responsible one, how that role had become both a prison and a source of superiority. Today, I'm still responsible with my finances, but that trait no longer defines me entirely. I've developed new friendships, taken up photography, even started dating again after years of focusing solely on career advancement. The loan betrayal nearly broke me financially and emotionally. Yet, through the recovery process, I discovered strengths I never knew I possessed and built a life more authentic than the one I had before. I learned that family love without boundaries isn't really love at all. It's obligation masquerading as affection. If you're facing pressure to compromise your financial well-being for family, remember that true love doesn't require financial self-destruction. What boundaries have you had to set with family to protect yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. Remember, protecting your financial health isn't selfish, it's essential self-care. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm Amber Wilson, 32, a tech entrepreneur with a story that still makes my chest tighten. My phone buzzed yesterday with Heather's name, my sister who I've barely spoken to in years. She was sobbing about our family's financial disaster. Instantly, I was transported back 14 years when I discovered she'd stolen my entire $45,000 college fund for a shopping spree. The worst part? My family laughed it off as just Heather being Heather. Now they need my help. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to join me on this journey of betrayal and justice. Growing up in Portland, Oregon shaped me in ways I'm still discovering. Our middle-class neighborhood was filled with tidy homes and carefully maintained lawns. My parents, Mark and Rachel Wilson, worked hard to provide for us. Dad managed a furniture store downtown, and Mom taught third grade at the local elementary school. They were respected in the community, active in the PTA, and seemed like model parents to outsiders. But inside our home, the dynamic was painfully different. From my earliest memories, the pattern was clear. Heather, my sister 3 years older than me, was the golden child. I was the afterthought. When Heather performed in school plays, my parents sat front row, cameras ready. When I won the state science fair in 8th grade, they couldn't attend because Heather had a hair appointment they couldn't possibly reschedule. Our personalities couldn't have been more different. Heather was outgoing, charismatic, and knew exactly how to charm adults. Her room was plastered with posters of boy bands and movie stars. She was popular, always surrounded by friends, and dated the captain of the football team. I was the quiet, bookish one who preferred the library to parties. My sanctuary was my small bedroom with its overflowing bookshelf and desk where I studied late into the night. Amber, why can't you be more like your sister? Became the unofficial family motto. Heather made average grades, but was praised endlessly. I maintained a perfect 4.0 GPA, but was told I should try to have more fun. When Heather failed algebra, Mom hired a tutor and blamed the teacher. When I skipped a grade in math, it was barely acknowledged. The disparity in our treatment was striking, but I found my path forward. While Heather spent weekends at the mall with friends, I volunteered at the hospital and took community college classes. I knew education was my ticket to independence. My dream was Stanford University's computer science program. The technology world was exploding, and I wanted to be part of it. My saving grace came from my grandparents. Mom's parents, who had always treated me with special kindness, perhaps seeing what was happening. Grandpa Wilson had been a mathematics professor, and we shared a special bond over logic puzzles and chess games. When I was 12, they established a college fund specifically for me. You have a brilliant mind, Amber, Grandpa told me during our last Christmas together. We want to make sure you have every opportunity to develop it. They contributed $45,000 to an account that my parents would manage as trustees until I turned 18. It was their life savings, and it meant everything to me. The college fund became my beacon of hope. Whenever Heather received new clothes while I got hand-me-downs, I reminded myself about Stanford. When my 16th birthday party was canceled because Heather had an impromptu beach weekend with friends, I comforted myself by calculating how much interest my college fund was accruing. There were countless warning signs about Heather's entitlement. When she was 16, she crashed Dad's car while joyriding with friends. Instead of consequences, she received a used car of her own. She needs to get to her activities safely, Mom explained. When she maxed out Mom's credit card buying clothes, they paid it off without hesitation. She's just learning about money, Dad said with a shrug. My strategy was clear: excel academically, build a resume that would earn scholarships, and get out. I became editor of the school newspaper, president of the computer club, and volunteered tutoring underprivileged kids. Every achievement was a stepping stone toward freedom. Senior year arrived with promise. My application to Stanford was perfect. Top scores, glowing recommendations, and a personal essay about developing an algorithm to help the hospital volunteer program operate more efficiently. The acceptance letter came on a rainy April morning. I stood in the driveway, the prestigious envelope in my trembling hands, rain mixing with tears of joy on my face. That night, I expected at least some acknowledgement of my achievement. Instead, dinner conversation revolved entirely around Heather's breakup with her boyfriend. When I finally managed to mention Stanford, Mom said, "That's nice, honey." "Heather, do you want more potatoes?" Still, I had my plan. With my college fund and a partial scholarship, I could afford Stanford's tuition. I spent the summer working at the local tech repair shop, saving every dollar for books and living expenses. I researched housing options, joined Stanford's student forums, and mapped out my class schedule. For once, my future felt completely within my control. 2 weeks before I was scheduled to leave for California, I visited the bank to withdraw the funds for my tuition payment. What happened next changed everything. The bank manager's expression should have been my first clue. When I presented my ID and asked to access my college fund to pay my Stanford tuition, his face fell. "I'm sorry, Ms. Wilson, but that account was emptied 3 months ago," he said, checking his computer screen with furrowed brows. "There must be a mistake," I insisted, my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. My grandparents set up that account specifically for my education. It had $45,000 in it. He turned the monitor toward me. The balance read $0. The transaction history showed a complete withdrawal made by Rachel Wilson, my mother, who was a co-trustee on the account. The drive home that day remains vivid in my memory. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind raced through possibilities. Perhaps there was an error. Maybe they'd moved the money to a different account with better interest rates. Deep down, I knew better. When I arrived home, both my parents' cars were in the driveway, along with Heather's BMW. I hadn't even known she was visiting from her apartment across town. The moment I walked through the door, I could hear laughter from the kitchen. They were having lunch together, a spread of takeout containers on the table. "What happened to my college fund?" I asked without preamble. The laughter stopped. 3 pairs of eyes turned to me with varying degrees of guilt, though not nearly enough. "Oh, honey," Mom began, setting down her fork. "We were going to talk to you about that." "About what exactly?" My voice was eerily calm. Dad cleared his throat. "There was a temporary situation that came up. We had to use those funds, but we're planning to replace them." Heather suddenly became very interested in her salad. "What situation?" I pressed. The silence that followed confirmed my worst fears. Finally, Heather spoke up, her tone casual as if discussing borrowing a sweater. "I had some expenses. Mom and Dad helped me out with your fund, but I'll totally pay you back someday." What expenses could possibly justify taking my entire college fund? The calm in my voice was evaporating. That's when the full story emerged in bits and pieces between awkward glances. Heather had gone on a 3-month spending spree. Designer clothes. A luxury vacation to Las Vegas with friends. A down payment on a new BMW to replace her embarrassing, used model. Home decor for her apartment. The list went on. "You spent my education money on clothes and a car?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Don't be so dramatic, Amber," Heather rolled her eyes. "You can take out loans like everybody else. It's not like you won't get an education." I turned to my parents, waiting for them to express outrage, to defend me, to promise immediate action to rectify this theft. Instead, Dad said, "Your sister had some important needs. We'll figure something out for your tuition." Important needs? Like what? A trip to Vegas? A car she can't afford? My voice was rising now. Mom reached for my hand across the table. I pulled away. "Sweetie, you're smart. You can get scholarships. You'll figure it out." That money was from Grandpa and Grandma. They wanted me to go to Stanford. It was their dying wish. My voice cracked. They would have wanted to help both their granddaughters, Mom said, her tone suggesting this was a reasonable position. Heather needed a boost to get established. The most surreal moment came later that evening. We were sitting at dinner, the conversation having moved on as if my future hadn't just been demolished. Heather was describing her Vegas trip, laughing about how she and her friends had upgraded to a luxury suite. "You should have seen it, paid for by the Bank of Amber," she joked, and to my horror, my parents chuckled. Dad raised his glass in a mock toast to Amber's contribution to the family economy. They were laughing. Actually laughing about the theft of my future. I pushed away from the table and went to my room. For hours, I sat in shocked silence, staring at the Stanford acceptance letter pinned to my bulletin board. The next morning, I called the university's financial aid office to explain my situation. The sympathetic counselor outlined my options: massive loans that would take decades to repay, or deferring enrollment until I could save enough money. Stanford was slipping away. Their partial scholarship wouldn't come close to covering what I needed without the fund. State University became my only viable option. I could live at home to save money, a prospect that now felt like imprisonment. A week later, I made the hardest call of my life to Stanford's admissions office, declining my spot in the freshman class. The same day, I applied to Portland State University, where I could afford tuition by working full-time alongside my studies. The night before what should have been my departure for Stanford, I sat alone in my room surrounded by the college supplies I'd carefully purchased over the summer. The Stanford sweatshirt I'd bought with my first paycheck. The dorm room decorations chosen with such excitement. The laptop I'd saved for, perfect for computer science studies. In that moment, I made a decision that would define the next decade of my life. I would excel despite them, not because of them. And once I achieved independence, I would never allow my family to hurt me again. The next morning, I moved my essential belongings to a tiny studio apartment I'd found near Portland State. I left a note: "I'll make my own way now. Don't contact me unless it's to return what was stolen." It would be years before I spoke to them again. My new apartment was barely larger than my childhood bedroom. A futon served as both bed and couch, a card table functioned as my desk, and a hot plate was my kitchen. The bathroom was so small I could touch all four walls without moving. But it was mine, and that made it beautiful. Portland State University wasn't Stanford, but I was determined to extract every ounce of value from my education. While other students complained about 8 a.m. classes, I was already on campus by 6:30 each morning, using the computer lab before my first class. Between classes, I worked at the campus tech support center. Evenings and weekends, I waited tables at a restaurant near my apartment. Sleep became a luxury I rarely enjoyed. My schedule was punishing. Monday through Friday, I attended classes from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., worked at tech support until 6 p.m., then waited tables until midnight. Saturdays and Sundays, I pulled double shifts at the restaurant. Homework happened between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. most nights. I survived on coffee and determination. The turning point came during my sophomore year when I took an advanced programming class with Professor Jennifer Collins. Unlike most professors who lectured to a sea of anonymous faces, she noticed individual students. After I aced her notoriously difficult midterm, she asked me to stay after class. "You have exceptional talent," she said, studying me with intelligent eyes behind stylish glasses. "But you look exhausted. What's your story, Amber?" Something about her genuine interest broke through my carefully constructed walls. Before I knew it, I was telling her everything: the stolen college fund, working multiple jobs, my estrangement from family. She listened without interruption, her expression shifting from surprise to outrage to determination. "Come to my office hours tomorrow," she said when I finished. "I have some ideas." Professor Collins became the mentor I desperately needed. She helped me apply for additional scholarships I hadn't known existed. She recommended me for a paid research assistant position that paid better than my restaurant job and provided valuable experience. Most importantly, she pushed me to think beyond just surviving. "You're not just trying to get a degree," she told me. "You're building the foundation for an exceptional career. Think bigger." Under her guidance, I focused my studies on emerging areas of software development. While my classmates aimed for safe, established companies, I immersed myself in the cutting edge: artificial intelligence, machine learning, and predictive algorithms. I created a self-guided curriculum that went far beyond my required courses. By junior year, I had developed a prototype for inventory management software that used predictive analytics to optimize supply chains. Professor Collins encouraged me to enter it in a statewide innovation competition. To my shock, I won first place and $10,000 in seed funding. That money became my liberation fund. I quit the restaurant job and focused entirely on refining my software. Professor Collins introduced me to local business owners who agreed to beta test my system. The results exceeded even my expectations, reducing their inventory costs by an average of 32%. Graduation day arrived with no family in attendance. Professor Collins sat in the front row, cheering loudly when I was recognized with highest honors. Afterward, she handed me a small gift box containing a business card holder with my name engraved on it. "For all the connections you're about to make," she said with a knowing smile. Rather than pursuing traditional employment, I took a calculated risk. I used my competition winnings and a small business loan to launch my own company, PredictX Software Solutions. The early days were terrifying. My apartment became my office, my bed serving as conference table during client meetings. I survived on ramen and determination. My first major contract came 6 months after launch. A regional grocery chain implemented my inventory system across their 23 stores. When the quarterly results showed a significant reduction in spoilage and improved profit margins, other businesses took notice. Suddenly, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. By year 3, I had moved into a proper office space and hired my first 5 employees. By year 5, PredictX had 30 employees and a downtown headquarters with a view of the Willamette River. My tiny studio apartment was replaced by a modern loft in Portland's Pearl District. The card table desk was upgraded to custom-designed furniture. The futon gave way to a king-sized bed with luxury linens. Financial security brought freedom I'd never known. I could buy books without checking prices. I could eat at restaurants without calculating tips based on what I could afford rather than service quality. I started investing, building wealth that would ensure I never depended on anyone again. Throughout these years, contact with my family remained minimal. Occasionally, Mom would text on birthdays or holidays. I responded politely but briefly. Dad never reached out directly. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard bits of family news. Dad's furniture store was struggling due to online competition. Mom had retired from teaching earlier than planned due to health issues. Heather's life played out on social media for all to see. She had married Ryan, a real estate agent with a perpetual tan and perfect teeth. Their wedding was lavish, with professional photographs showing my parents beaming proudly. They bought a large house in an upscale neighborhood they clearly couldn't afford. They posted endless photos of luxury vacations and expensive restaurant meals, always with carefully curated hashtags like #blessed and #livingthedream. When they announced the birth of their son, Nathan, I felt an unexpected pang. I had a nephew I would likely never know. I sent an anonymous gift basket to their home, but didn't include a card. Some boundaries weren't ready to be crossed. As my business thrived, I occasionally wondered if my family knew about my success. Portland's Business Journal had featured me in their 40 Under 40 list. Our company had been profiled in several tech publications. I wasn't famous, but in certain circles, the name Amber Wilson carried weight. I had built exactly what I'd wanted: a successful company, financial independence, and a life entirely on my terms. The wounds of betrayal had scarred over, though they still ached when prodded. I had everything I needed and no reason to look back. Then my phone rang, displaying a name I hadn't seen in years, Heather Wilson. Against my better judgment, I answered. Amber? Heather's voice was barely recognizable, choked with tears. I know I have no right to call you, but I don't know what else to do. I sat down at my kitchen island, instinctively bracing myself. What's going on, Heather? What followed was a 15-minute deluge of panic and desperation. Between sobs, Heather outlined a family financial disaster of epic proportions. The carefully curated social media life had been a complete facade. Dad's furniture store had finally gone under after years of declining sales. He'd made a series of increasingly risky investments trying to save it, leveraging their house and retirement accounts. All had failed spectacularly. At 63, he was now working as a cashier at a grocery store, making barely above minimum wage. Mom's early retirement had actually been a forced departure due to breast cancer diagnosis 3 years ago. Their insurance had covered the initial treatment, but the maintenance medications and follow-up care were draining what little savings they had left. Recent scans showed concerning spots that required additional testing not covered by their high-deductible plan. Their family home, where we had grown up, was 3 months into foreclosure proceedings. The bank had given them 30 days to catch up on payments or vacate. And us. God, Amber, we're just as bad, Heather continued, her voice cracking. Ryan's real estate business tanked during the downturn. We've been living on credit cards for 2 years. Our house is underwater by $100,000. The cars are both being repossessed next week. Then came the part that actually reached something inside me. Nathan, our son, he's 5 now. He has some developmental delays that require special therapy and educational resources. We can't afford any of it anymore, and he's starting to regress without support. The call continued with Heather becoming increasingly frantic. I know you hate me. You have every right to. What I did to you is unforgivable. I've thought about it every day for 14 years. I'm not asking for myself, but Mom and Dad are about to be homeless and Nathan needs help. When she finally paused for breath, I asked the question that had immediately come to mind. Why me? Why now? There was a long pause. Because you're the only one who ever had it together. And because I saw an article about your company in Business Weekly. It said you were worth millions now. Her voice became small. Is that true? I neither confirmed nor denied it. I need to think about this, Heather. Please, she whispered. I know I don't deserve your help, but they don't deserve to lose everything. After hanging up, I sat motionless at my kitchen island, watching the Portland skyline through my floor-to-ceiling windows. The setting sun cast long shadows across my carefully designed living space, all clean lines and minimalist decor. Everything in its place. Everything earned through my own efforts. I called Madison, my closest friend since college and now my company's marketing director. You won't believe who just called me, I began when she answered. After explaining the situation, I waited for her reaction. What are you thinking? She asked carefully. I don't know. Part of me wants to hang up on 14 years of silence and betrayal. Another part keeps thinking about a 5-year-old boy who had nothing to do with any of this. Madison was silent for a moment. Do you believe them? Could this be a scam to get money from you? The question had already occurred to me. Possibly. Heather was always manipulative. Then verify before you decide, Madison suggested. You have the resources to find out if this is real. She was right. Before making any decision, I needed facts, not emotional appeals. The next morning, I contacted a private financial investigator and gave him the details. I also booked a flight to Portland for the following week. I needed to see the situation with my own eyes. As I packed my suitcase, memories I'd suppressed for years came flooding back. The crushing disappointment of calling Stanford to decline my spot. The humiliation of working at the restaurant where some of my high school classmates dined. The lonely nights in my tiny apartment, exhausted but too anxious about money to sleep. And beneath it all, the fundamental betrayal, my sister stealing my future and my parents not only allowing it but laughing about it afterward. The casual cruelty still had the power to take my breath away. On the flight to Portland, I found myself staring at old family photos on my phone, ones I hadn't looked at in years. Behind every smile was a story I now questioned. Had there ever been true family love there, or just convenience and habit? The investigators' preliminary report arrived as my plane landed. It confirmed everything Heather had told me, plus additional debts she hadn't mentioned. The total financial hole my family had dug was approaching $340,000. They weren't just struggling, they were drowning. My rental car felt like a time machine as I drove through my old neighborhood. I parked a block away from my parents' house, watching from a distance. The once pristine lawn was overgrown. The white trim needed painting. An official-looking notice was taped to the front door, the foreclosure warning, presumably. As I watched, my father pulled into the driveway in an old sedan that had replaced his once proud SUV. He moved slowly now, his shoulders hunched as he carried grocery bags inside. He looked 20 years older than his age. I followed the investigators' addresses. My mother's medical center, where the receptionist confirmed she was indeed a cancer patient on a payment plan. The grocery store where my father now worked, watching him mechanically scan items with vacant eyes. Heather and Ryan's house in a neighborhood that had once been exclusive but was now showing signs of decline. And finally, Nathan's therapy center, where a kind therapist explained the importance of consistent treatment for his specific developmental needs. That night, in my hotel room, I finally broke down. Years of carefully controlled emotions burst through the dam I'd built. I sobbed until I couldn't breathe, for the young girl whose dreams had been stolen, for the family relationships that had been poisoned by favoritism and entitlement, and for the years of loneliness I'd endured as the price of my independence. When the tears finally stopped, I felt oddly clear-headed. The investigation had confirmed that the crisis was real. Now I had to decide. What, if anything, did I owe to the people who had hurt me so deeply? The financial investigator I hired, Carl Bennett, was thorough beyond my expectations. His complete report arrived in my hotel inbox the next morning, a detailed 40-page document outlining my family's financial situation with clinical precision. My father's furniture store had been struggling for years before finally closing 18 months ago. He had indeed made a series of increasingly desperate investments, including a restaurant franchise that never opened and a speculative real estate development that collapsed when the developer was indicted for fraud. These failures had wiped out not only his business assets, but also their retirement savings and home equity. Mom's medical situation was equally grim. Stage 2 breast cancer 3 years ago, now with concerning imaging that suggested possible recurrence. Their insurance was a high-deductible plan that left them responsible for thousands in out-of-pocket costs. She had been prescribed an expensive maintenance medication that they often couldn't afford, leading to dangerous gaps in treatment. Heather and Ryan's situation reflected years of living beyond their means. Their mortgage was underwater by $118,000, not the $100,000 Heather had claimed. Credit card debt exceeded $65,000 across 12 cards, all nearly maxed out. Ryan's real estate business had failed not just because of market conditions, but because of a lawsuit from clients who alleged misrepresentation on a property sale. Car loans, personal loans, and medical bills for Nathan's therapy created a perfect storm of financial catastrophe. Carl had even obtained their credit scores: Dad 540, Mom 560, Heather 480, Ryan 510. Financial ruin by any definition. The report also included something I hadn't requested: a psychological assessment of Nathan based on his medical and educational records. At 5 years old, he was diagnosed with a processing disorder that affected his speech and social development. With proper intervention, his prognosis was excellent. Without it, he faced significant challenges throughout his education and possibly beyond. Based on my investigation, Carl concluded, "This is not a scam to extract money from you. This is a genuine financial crisis affecting multiple family members with no clear path to resolution through conventional means." I spent the morning driving around Portland, retracing the steps of my youth. My high school now with a renovated facade. The library where I'd spent countless hours hiding from home tensions. The bank where I discovered my college fund was empty. Around noon, I found myself parked across from the grocery store where Dad worked. Through the window, I could see him at Register 3, mechanically scanning items for customers who never looked at his face. When his shift ended, I followed at a distance, watching him stop at a pharmacy to pick up prescriptions, then head home. My childhood home looked even worse up close. The garden Mom had once tended with pride was now overtaken by weeds. The blue paint was fading and peeling in places. Through the windows, I could see sparse furniture, suggesting they'd already sold pieces to cover expenses. I drove past Heather and Ryan's house next. Their luxury cars had been replaced by a single older sedan with visible body damage. Their son, my nephew Nathan, was playing in the front yard, struggling to catch a ball that Ryan gently tossed to him. Even from a distance, I could see the frustration on Nathan's face when the ball repeatedly slipped from his hands, and the patient encouragement from Ryan as he demonstrated the catching motion again. My final stop was a coffee shop where I had arranged to meet Susan Green, my parents' next-door neighbor for 20 years. She had no idea of my estrangement from the family and greeted me warmly. "Amber, it's been so long. Your parents must be thrilled to have you visiting." "They don't actually know I'm in town," I admitted. "I'm trying to understand what's happened to them before I reach out." Susan's expression shifted to concern. "It's been awful to watch, honestly. Your father was so proud. He tried to hide their troubles for a long time. Your mother's illness took such a toll on him. I bring casseroles over sometimes, but they barely have enough energy to maintain basic needs. And they never ask for help? Never. Your father especially seems ashamed of their situation. He was always the provider, you know? Now he bags groceries for people he used to consider peers. The humiliation is written all over his face." She hesitated, then added, "They talk about you, though. Your mother shows me articles about your company. There's one framed in their living room." This surprised me. They never reach out. Pride, maybe? Or shame. They made mistakes with you, didn't they? Her directness caught me off guard. Your mother has mentioned regrets, especially when she got sick. Cancer has a way of clarifying what matters. I left the meeting with Susan feeling more conflicted than ever. That evening, I organized all the information I had gathered into a comprehensive picture of my family's situation. The facts were undeniable. They were in genuine crisis with no way out. Whatever resentment I harbored, the reality of their suffering couldn't be dismissed. In my hotel room, I opened my laptop and looked at my own financial situation. The company valuation at our last funding round had put my net worth at just over $12 million. I had the means to resolve their entire financial disaster without significantly impacting my own security. The question wasn't whether I could help, but whether I should. And if so, how? I thought about Nathan, who had no part in past betrayals, but was suffering their consequences. I thought about my mother's cancer, and how fear and pain must be compounding her financial stress. I even thought about Heather, whose tearful phone call suggested a level of regret I hadn't believed her capable of feeling. That night, I drafted multiple plans, each approaching the situation from a different angle. By morning, I had made my decision. This wouldn't be a simple bailout or a vindictive rejection. It would be something more nuanced, addressing both past wounds and present needs. I texted Heather, "I'll meet with everyone tomorrow at 2 p.m. Have Mom and Dad at their house. You and Ryan be there too." Her response was immediate. "Thank you, Amber. Thank you so much. I spent my final day in Portland preparing. I visited my company's legal team to draft necessary documents. I spoke with financial advisors about structuring potential assistance. I even consulted a family therapist about setting healthy boundaries. As the meeting time approached, I felt surprisingly calm. The anger and hurt weren't gone, but they no longer controlled me. For the first time in 14 years, I was walking into a family situation with clear eyes and on my own terms. The doorbell to my childhood home felt foreign under my finger. I had rehearsed this moment countless times, yet nothing prepared me for the flood of emotions as the door swung open. My mother stood there, thinner than I remembered, her once vibrant red hair now gray and sparse from chemotherapy. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Amber? Oh my God, Amber." She reached for me, then hesitated, uncertain if physical contact was welcome. I made the decision for her, stepping forward into a brief, awkward hug. The familiar scent of her perfume, the same brand she'd worn my entire life, triggered a rush of memories, both comforting and painful. The living room had been rearranged, with fewer furniture pieces creating an illusion of deliberate minimalism rather than financial necessity. My father rose from his recliner, looking small in clothes that hung loosely on his frame. Heather and Ryan sat tensely on the couch, while a dark-haired boy, Nathan, played quietly with blocks in the corner. "You came," Dad said, his voice rough with emotion. "We didn't think." "I'm here to talk," I said, remaining standing as everyone else sat. The power dynamic wasn't accidental. "Heather called me about your situation." An uncomfortable silence fell. Finally, Mom spoke. "We didn't want to burden you with our problems. You've built such a wonderful life." "Let's be honest," I replied. "You didn't reach out because we haven't had a real relationship in 14 years. Not since the college fund incident." The words hung in the air, the elephant in the room finally acknowledged. "I've spent the past week investigating your financial situation," I continued, opening my laptop on the coffee table. "I know about the failed business investments, Mom's medical bills, the foreclosure, Heather and Ryan's debt, and Nathan's therapy needs. I've verified everything independently." Their expressions ranged from surprise to embarrassment. Clearly, they hadn't expected such thoroughness. "Before we discuss anything else, I need to hear from each of you. I need to understand how you got here." I turned to my father. "Dad, you first." My father's story emerged haltingly. The furniture business had been declining for years due to online competition. Rather than adapting, he'd made increasingly desperate attempts to maintain their lifestyle through risky investments. "I was too proud to admit I was failing," he confessed, staring at his hands. "Now I bag groceries for people I used to play golf with." Mom described her cancer diagnosis and treatment, the terror of facing mortality while watching their financial security evaporate. The medical bills just kept coming. We started choosing between medications and mortgage payments. Ryan explained how his real estate career had collapsed after a lawsuit from dissatisfied clients. Rather than rebuilding slowly, he and Heather had maintained appearances through credit cards and loans. We thought the market would turn around. By the time we realized how deep the hole was, it was too late to climb out. Throughout these explanations, Heather remained silent, tears streaming down her face. When her turn came, she could barely speak. "I don't even know where to start," she whispered. "The money, your college fund, it wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was part of a pattern I can see so clearly now. I always took and took, never thinking about consequences." She described years of reckless spending, enabled by our parents and fueled by a sense of entitlement she now recognized as toxic. "I kept thinking happiness was in the next purchase, the next vacation, the next house. I dragged Ryan into my delusions. I dragged everyone down." Looking directly at me for the first time, she added, "The worst part is what I stole from you. Not just money, but opportunities. A relationship with your family. I can never make that right." As they spoke, I observed Nathan from the corner of my eye. His movements were slightly uncoordinated, his focus intense on the structure he was building. A beautiful child caught in circumstances beyond his control. When they finished, I finally sat down. "Now it's my turn," I said quietly. For the next 30 minutes, I told my story, the one they had never bothered to learn. The tiny apartment, the multiple jobs, the exhaustion and isolation. The kindness of Professor Collins when my own family had abandoned me. The years of grinding work to build my company. The loneliness of holidays spent alone while they continued as a family without me. The day I discovered my college fund was gone wasn't just about money, I explained, my voice steady despite the emotion beneath. It was the moment I realized I wasn't valued in this family. And the dinner afterwards, when you all laughed about it. That showed me I wasn't even respected. My mother began to sob quietly. My father looked physically ill. Heather couldn't meet my eyes. I built a successful life despite what happened, not because of it. PredictX now employs over 100 people. Our valuation at the last funding round was $78 million. I let that sink in. I have the financial means to solve all your problems with a single wire transfer. Hope flickered across their faces. But I won't do that, I continued. A bailout without accountability would solve nothing. You'd be back in trouble within years, maybe months. I opened my briefcase and removed several folders. I'm offering a structured intervention with conditions attached. If you agree, I'll help. If not, I'll walk out that door and we can all continue as we have been. One by one, I outlined my terms. For my parents, I would pay off the mortgage arrears and restructure their loan, with the condition that they complete financial counseling and stick to a budget I would monitor. I would cover Mom's medical expenses directly to the providers, ensuring she received proper care. For Heather and Ryan, no direct financial assistance except for Nathan's needs. Instead, a job offer for Heather at the Portland branch of my company, starting in an entry-level position with the opportunity to advance based solely on merit. For Ryan, connections to reputable real estate mentors who could help him rebuild his business ethically. For Nathan, a special education trust that would cover his therapy and educational needs through college, structured so that neither Heather nor Ryan could access the funds for any other purpose. These offers come with one non-negotiable condition, I concluded. Family therapy. All of us together working through 14 years of dysfunction with a professional mediator. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Heather spoke. "You have every right to turn your back on us," she said softly. "This is more than generous. I'll take the job and work harder than you can imagine." My father struggled visibly with his pride before nodding. "We accept your terms. All of them." As we worked through the details, I felt neither the vindication nor the warm reconciliation I might have imagined. Instead, there was something more complex, the beginning of an honest relationship built on reality rather than obligation or illusion. Before I left, Nathan approached me shyly, offering a block from his collection. "For you," he said, his speech slightly halting. "It's blue. Blue is the best color." I accepted it solemnly. "Thank you, Nathan. I think blue is the best color too." That small connection, untainted by past betrayals, felt like the first truly genuine moment of the day. 6 months after that fateful family meeting, I found myself back in my parents' living room, this time for a scheduled therapy session. Dr. Levine, our family counselor, sat in what had become her usual chair, notebook open, as we discussed our progress. The changes were both subtle and profound. My parents' house now had a fresh coat of paint. The garden was coming back to life, and inside, the atmosphere had shifted from desperate survival to cautious rebuilding. "Amber," Dr. Levine began, "you established clear boundaries and conditions for your help. How do you feel about the family's progress so far?" I considered the question carefully. "There have been genuine efforts," I acknowledged. "The financial restructuring is working as planned. Indeed, the structured assistance had already shown results. My parents were 4 months into their financial counseling program and adhering to their budget. Mom's medical treatment was proceeding without the added stress of financial burden, and her latest scans showed promising results. The foreclosure had been halted, and they were now current on their mortgage payments. "It's been humbling," Dad admitted, a word that would have been impossible for him to use 6 months earlier. Learning to live within our means, to distinguish between wants and needs. At my age, these shouldn't be new concepts. Mom reached for his hand. The relief of knowing I can get my medications without choosing between that and electricity. I can focus on getting better now. Heather's transformation had perhaps been the most surprising. She had started in the customer service department at Predictex's Portland office, answering phones and handling basic client inquiries. Rather than complaining about entry-level work, she had thrown herself into learning the business from the ground up. "I've never actually earned anything before," she confessed during the session. "Everything was given to me or taken. This is different. When I got my first performance review and it was positive, I cried in the bathroom for 10 minutes. Her supervisor, who had no idea she was my sister, had recently recommended her for advanced training. I had stayed completely removed from her professional development, allowing her to succeed or fail on her own merits. Ryan had connected with the business mentors I'd introduced him to and was rebuilding his real estate practice with a new emphasis on ethical client relationships. Their house had been sold in a short sale, and they were now renting a modest apartment, living within their means for the first time in their marriage. The downsizing was actually a relief, Ryan shared. No more pretending we were something we weren't. Nathan's progress had been particularly rewarding to witness. With consistent therapy now guaranteed through the educational trust, his speech had improved dramatically and his frustration levels had decreased. He had started kindergarten with appropriate support services in place. He has friends now, Heather said, genuine wonder in her voice. Actual playdates. Before, he was too frustrated to connect with other kids. Dr. Levine nodded encouragingly. "And how are the deeper family dynamics evolving? We've talked extensively about the patterns of favoritism and enabling that contributed to the breakdown. This was the harder work beyond financial restructuring. In weekly sessions, we had excavated decades of family dysfunction. My parents had confronted their preferential treatment of Heather and the damage it had caused both of us, her through entitlement, me through rejection. Heather had examined her history of taking without consequence. I had addressed my own tendency toward emotional isolation as a protective mechanism. I still struggle with trust, I admitted. There are moments when I brace for disappointment, waiting for the old patterns to reemerge. That's to be expected, Dr. Levine assured me. Trust is rebuilt slowly, through consistent actions over time. Mom spoke up, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. The hardest part has been facing how much we failed you, Amber. Not just with the college fund, but throughout your childhood. We favored Heather so consistently that it became our normal. We didn't even see it. I saw it, Heather said quietly. I exploited it. I knew exactly how to get what I wanted, and I never considered how it affected you. She looked at me directly, something she had struggled to do in early sessions. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that I understand what I did now. These acknowledgments, impossible 6 months ago, represented genuine progress. The family mythology had been dismantled and replaced with painful but necessary truth. 1 year after my initial intervention, we gathered for a different kind of meeting, a small celebration of Mom's latest scan, which showed no evidence of cancer. The backyard barbecue was modest by previous family standards, but authentic in a way our interactions had never been. Nathan, now 6, proudly showed me his collection of blue objects, stones, toy cars, crayons, that he had gathered since learning it was our favorite color. The simple connection between aunt and nephew had blossomed into something special. As the afternoon progressed, I found myself in the kitchen with Heather, preparing a salad while the others were outside. "I never thanked you properly," she said, carefully slicing cucumbers. "Not just for the financial help, but for the job. For the chance to prove something to myself." "You've done well," I acknowledged. "Your supervisor says you have potential in client relations." "It's the first time I've actually worked for anything." She hesitated. "I keep that blue block from Nathan on my desk at work. Whenever I feel frustrated or entitled, I look at it and remember what matters." Later, watching my family interact, still imperfect but now guided by awareness rather than denial, I reflected on the journey. The betrayal of my college fund had altered the course of my life, initially through devastation, but ultimately through determination. Would I have built Predict X without that galvanizing moment of self-reliance? Would I have discovered my own strength? Family relationships were still a work in progress. Trust was building slowly, like a structure being carefully reassembled after collapse. There were still difficult moments, misunderstandings, and occasions when old patterns threatened to resurface. But there was also something new: accountability, honesty, and genuine effort. The family therapy continues. My relationship with each family member is evolving at its own pace. With Mom, there's a tentative warmth. With Dad, respectful distance gradually yielding to understanding. With Heather, a complex rebuilding based on adult terms rather than childhood dynamics. And with Nathan, the pure joy of a relationship unburdened by past pain. I've learned that forgiveness isn't a single moment, but a process. It doesn't require forgetting or minimizing harm. It doesn't even necessarily mean reconciliation in all cases. Sometimes it simply means refusing to let past wounds determine your future actions. The college fund betrayal will always be part of our family story, but it's no longer the defining chapter for any of us. We're writing something new now, something more honest and ultimately more sustainable. If there's one lesson I would share from this journey, it's this: true success isn't measured by bank accounts or business valuations. It's measured by our capacity to break destructive cycles, to respond to pain with wisdom rather than reaction, and to build relationships based on truth rather than convenience or obligation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on forgiveness and family boundaries. Have you ever had to set firm conditions on your relationships? Did it lead to healing or further separation? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to join our community of people navigating complex family dynamics. Thank you for witnessing my journey, and remember that sometimes the deepest healing comes after the most painful betrayals. I'm Rebecca Mitchell, 32, and last month my life changed forever when I got promoted to marketing director, requiring a move from Chicago to San Francisco. My company offered a generous $650,000 relocation bonus to ease the transition. While packing our belongings, excitement buzzing through me about our fresh start, my phone rang. It was Diana, my mother-in-law, whose relationship with me had always been strained. What she said next made my blood run cold. Before I continue this story, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you've dealt with difficult in-laws. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Marketing has been my passion since college. After graduating with honors from Northwestern University, I landed an entry-level position at Horizon Global, a Fortune 500 company headquartered in Chicago. For 10 years, I poured my heart and soul into that company, working late nights, leading successful campaigns, and slowly climbing the corporate ladder. My dedication didn't go unnoticed. My husband Thomas, Tom to friends and family, always supported my career ambitions. We met at a coffee shop near the Horizon office building 7 years ago. He was finishing his architectural degree, sketching building designs, while I was preparing a presentation. We struck up a conversation about Chicago's iconic skyline, and the rest was history. 2 years later, we married in a beautiful ceremony by Lake Michigan. Tom eventually joined Anderson and Partners, a well-respected architectural firm, where he quickly made a name for himself designing sustainable commercial spaces. Our life together was comfortable. We owned a charming brownstone in Lincoln Park, enjoyed weekend trips to Michigan's wine country, and had built a solid group of friends. Though we both worked hard, we always made time for each other. Friday night was sacred. Dinner at our favorite local restaurant followed by walks along the lakeshore, discussing our weeks and dreams for the future. Then came the day that would change everything. My boss called me into her office on a Tuesday afternoon. "Rebecca, I'll get right to the point. The marketing director position in our San Francisco office is opening up, and your name is at the top of the list. It's a significant step up, larger team, bigger budget, and, honestly, the perfect showcase for your talents. The board has already approved the offer." I sat stunned as she pushed a folder across her desk. Inside was a formal offer letter outlining my new responsibilities, a 40% salary increase, and the relocation package. $650,000 to cover all moving expenses, temporary housing, and assistance selling our Chicago home. The amount was staggering. Wow, was all I could manage. Take a few days to discuss it with Tom. But Rebecca, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. That evening, I presented the offer to Tom over a bottle of wine at our dining table. His face lit up with each detail I shared. "San Francisco? Becca, this is incredible. I've always wanted to work with some of the innovative firms out there. Anderson has a sister office in Oakland I could potentially transfer to." His enthusiasm was palpable as he examined the offer letter. "And this relocation package is beyond generous. We could actually buy something decent there with this kind of assistance." The San Francisco housing market was notoriously expensive, making the relocation money essential. The company understood this, which explained the substantial amount. The funds would be deposited into a special relocation account from which we could draw to pay for approved expenses, selling our Chicago home, moving costs, temporary housing, and, most importantly, a down payment on a San Francisco property. We spent the weekend researching neighborhoods, schools, and the lifestyle change ahead. By Monday, my decision was made. I signed the offer letter, setting our new life in motion. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The company assigned us a relocation specialist named Melissa who guided us through the process. The HR department transferred the funds to a specially designated relocation account that both Tom and I could access. The money appeared in our account within days, $650,000 that would bridge our transition from one life to another. Melissa arranged a house hunting trip to San Francisco, booking us flights and a hotel in the Marina District. We spent 3 intensive days with a realtor named Patrick, viewing properties in various neighborhoods. "The market here moves fast," Patrick warned. "When you see something you love, be prepared to act quickly." On our final day, we found it, a beautiful 3-bedroom Edwardian in No Valley, with views of the city's skyline. Though significantly more expensive than our Chicago home, with the relocation package and my salary increase, it was within reach. We made an offer before flying back to Chicago. That's when the first signs of trouble appeared. When we shared our exciting news with Tom's parents over Sunday dinner at their suburban home, Diana's reaction was unexpectedly cold. "San Francisco? That's on the other side of the country. Why would you want to move so far away from family?" she asked, her fork paused midway to her mouth. "Mom, it's not even halfway across the country," Tom corrected gently. "And it's an amazing opportunity for Becca." "I suppose your career comes first," she said, looking directly at me. "Even before family." Tom's father Martin intervened. "Diana, be reasonable. This is wonderful news. Congratulations, Rebecca. We're proud of you." Diana remained silent for the rest of the meal, but her disapproval hung heavy in the air. As we prepared to leave, she pulled Tom aside for a private conversation that left him visibly uncomfortable during our drive home. "She's just worried about us being so far away," he explained, though his tone lacked conviction. 2 weeks later, our offer on the San Francisco house was accepted. We listed our Chicago property, which sold within days in the hot market. Everything was falling into place. The moving company was scheduled, our Chicago home was being packed, and our new life was taking shape. Then, just 3 days before our planned departure, I logged into our relocation account to pay the moving company's deposit. My stomach dropped as I stared at the screen. The balance, which should have shown well over $600,000, displayed just $1,278.43. To understand the shock of that moment, you need to know about my history with Diana. From the day Tom introduced me as his girlfriend, Diana made it clear that no woman would ever be good enough for her son, especially not me. Diana Patterson was the quintessential suburban matriarch. She maintained a perfect home in Evanston, hosted elaborate dinner parties, and held firm opinions about how others should live their lives. Her husband Martin, a successful cardiologist, generally deferred to her in most family matters, finding it easier to maintain peace than challenge her. The Patterson family included Tom and his younger sister Stephanie. While Tom had inherited his father's quiet intelligence and work ethic, Stephanie mirrored her mother's flair for drama and entitled attitude. At 30, Stephanie still lived at home, working part-time at a boutique and relying on her parents for financial support. Diana saw nothing wrong with this arrangement, often praising Stephanie for staying close to family. My first dinner at the Patterson home remained vivid in my memory. Diana had prepared an elaborate meal, during which she peppered me with questions about my family background. My parents were divorced, my father remarried, and living in Florida, my mother a high school teacher in Indiana. With each answer, Diana's smile grew tighter. "Well," she said finally, "not everyone comes from stable families. It's not your fault, dear." Throughout our relationship, Diana found subtle ways to undermine me. When Tom and I announced our engagement, she immediately lamented that the timing was inconvenient, as she'd been planning a European trip that would conflict with any reasonable wedding date. When we set the date anyway, she criticized every decision, from the venue to my dress. "I just want to make sure you don't embarrass yourself, dear," she would say. Stephanie would have chosen something more elegant. The wedding itself became a battlefield. Diana insisted on inviting distant relatives and business associates we'd never met, attempted to change our menu selections without consulting us, and even tried to convince Tom that my choice of wedding party was inappropriate. It took Tom finally putting his foot down to salvage our special day. "My mother means well," was Tom's constant refrain. "She's just protective." After we married, Diana's interference continued. She would drop by our home unannounced, offering unsolicited advice about everything from how I organized my kitchen to how I should style my hair. She gave Tom expensive gifts, but presented me with oddly impersonal items, like generic bath sets or kitchen gadgets I'd never use. "I thought you might need help with your cooking," she would say, though I was actually an accomplished cook. Family gatherings were exercises in patience. Diana would position Tom and Stephanie together in conversations, photos, and seating arrangements, often physically and conversationally excluding me. She told childhood stories that highlighted private jokes I couldn't share, planned activities around interests I didn't have, and served dishes with ingredients she knew I didn't care for. My friends noticed. My best friend Lauren warned me after meeting Diana at our housewarming party. "That woman is plotting your demise," she half-joked. "Watch your back." I tried. For Tom's sake, I maintained a polite demeanor, ignored the barbs, and attempted to build a relationship with his mother. I invited her to lunch, asked her advice when appropriate, and acknowledged family traditions. Nothing worked. To Diana, I remained the woman who had stolen her son. Tom struggled with his mother's behavior. Though he occasionally defended me, he more often tried to minimize the conflict, interpreting her actions in the most charitable light possible. Family dynamics established in childhood are difficult to break, and Tom had been conditioned to accommodate his mother's controlling nature. Just ignore her when she gets like that, he would advise after particularly tense interactions. That's what Dad and I do. But ignoring Diana wasn't always possible, especially when she escalated her interference. When Tom and I discussed starting a family, Diana began sending me articles about career women making poor mothers. When we mentioned buying a vacation cabin, she warned Tom about my financially irresponsible background, citing my student loans as evidence. The promotion and relocation to San Francisco represented freedom from Diana's constant presence, which perhaps explained her immediate opposition. The day after we told his parents, Diana called Tom repeatedly, sending him links to articles about crime in San Francisco, astronomical living costs, and earthquake risks. "Mom, we've done our research," Tom assured her. "This is happening." Diana switched tactics, suggesting that Tom could find a better position in Chicago, that moving would damage his career, that I was selfishly prioritizing my ambitions over his. When these arguments failed to gain traction, she became emotional. "I just don't understand why you want to abandon your family," she told Tom tearfully over the phone. "After everything we've done for you." As our move approached, Diana's behavior became increasingly erratic. She insisted on helping us pack, then criticized my organization system. She suggested we store valuable items at her house for safekeeping rather than transport them. She questioned the competence of our chosen moving company and the wisdom of our housing choice. Most disturbing was the discovery I made while preparing our home office for packing. I found Tom's spare key to our house missing from its drawer. When questioned, Tom admitted sheepishly that he had given it to his mother in case of emergencies. "She's had it for years," he confessed. I didn't think it was a big deal. The idea of Diana having unfettered access to our home sent chills down my spine, but with the move imminent, I focused on the future. Soon, there would be an entire continent between us and Diana's interference. Or so I thought. The relocation account balance of $1,278.43 made no sense. Just yesterday, I had checked the balance to calculate our remaining funds after the down payment on the San Francisco house. It had shown over $600,000. I refreshed the page, thinking it might be a glitch. The number remained unchanged. Heart racing, I called the bank's customer service line. "Mrs. Mitchell, I can confirm that a wire transfer was processed yesterday in the amount of $648,721.57, the representative explained after verifying my identity. The funds were transferred to an account at Pacific Western Bank. "I didn't authorize any transfer," I said, my voice shaking. "Can you reverse it?" "I'm afraid once a wire transfer is completed, we can't unilaterally reverse it. You would need to file a fraud claim, which I can help you initiate right now." While completing the fraud claim, I called Tom, who was at his office finishing his final week of work. "Tom, all our relocation money is gone," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "Someone transferred it out yesterday. We need to call the company immediately." "What? That's impossible." "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm on the phone with the bank right now. Can you call Melissa at HR and let her know what's happening?" "I'll contact the police." Tom agreed, sounding stunned. I was hanging up with the bank when my phone rang again. Diana's name flashed on the screen. Something made me answer and record the call. "Hello, Diana," I said cautiously. "Rebecca," she replied, her voice dripping with unusual satisfaction. "I wanted to call and thank you personally." "Thank me for what?" She laughed, a sound both triumphant and cruel. "For your generosity, of course. I used your $650,000 relocation bonus to buy my daughter a beach house. You don't deserve it." The world seemed to stop. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "You heard me. Stephanie has always wanted a beach house in Michigan. Now she has one, thanks to you and Tom. Consider it compensation for you taking my son away to California." Her voice was smug, confident. Despite the rage and panic threatening to overwhelm me, I maintained my composure. "Thanks for letting me know," I said evenly. My calm response clearly wasn't what Diana expected. There was a pause before she sputtered, "That's it? You're not going to say anything else?" "No, Diana. That's all I needed to hear. Goodbye." I ended the call and immediately saved the recording. My hands shook as I called the police to report the theft. The officer who took my report advised me to contact the company's legal department immediately, as this involved corporate funds. Tom arrived home an hour later, his face ashen. "Melissa is contacting legal and the CFO. They're taking this extremely seriously." "What happened? How could someone access our account?" I played him the recording of Diana's call. Tom's face transformed as he listened. Disbelief, then shock, followed by a devastation so profound it was painful to witness. When the recording ended, he sat heavily on our half-packed sofa. "This can't be real," he whispered. "My mother wouldn't. She couldn't." "She did, Tom." "She admitted it, laughed about it. She stole our relocation money to buy Stephanie a beach house." Tom shook his head, denial warring with the evidence he'd just heard. "There must be some misunderstanding. Let me call her." He put his phone on speaker as Diana answered. "Mom, what have you done?" "Tommy, what's wrong? You sound upset." Her voice was innocent, concerned. "Rebecca says you took our relocation money. Tell me that's not true." "What?" "That's ridiculous. Rebecca is making things up again. You know how dramatic she can be." I stepped forward. "Diana, I recorded our earlier conversation. You admitted taking the money to buy Stephanie a beach house." There was a long silence before Diana's voice returned, now cold and defensive. "You had no right to record me. And besides, that money should have stayed in the family, not spent on some ridiculous move across the country." Tom's face crumpled. "So it's true? You actually stole from us." "I didn't steal anything," Diana snapped. "I was protecting your inheritance. That woman has been taking you away from your family for years. This move is just the final step in her plan." "That woman is my wife," Tom said, his voice rising. "And that money was for our future. How could you do this to us?" "I did it for you, Thomas. One day you'll thank me when that marriage falls apart and you still have family to come home to." Tom ended the call, his hands shaking. The look he gave me contained such pain that I instinctively moved to embrace him. He clung to me like a drowning man. "I'm so sorry," he whispered against my hair. "I never thought you would go this far." Never. That evening was a blur of phone calls. To the company, to the police, to our realtor in San Francisco who needed to know our down payment might be delayed. The moving company was still scheduled to arrive the next day, but now we had no idea where we would be going or how we would pay for anything. In the midst of this chaos, Tom's phone lit up with a text from Stephanie. "OMG, thank you guys so much for the beach house. Mom just told me. Can't wait to show you when you visit. Love you both." Tom stared at the message, then slowly typed, "Stephanie, that house was purchased with stolen money. Mom took it from our relocation fund without permission. The police are involved now." Stephanie's response came quickly. "What are you talking about? Mom said it was a gift from both of you because you felt bad about moving away. She said you specifically wanted me to have it." "That's not true. We knew nothing about it. The money was stolen from our account yesterday." There was a long pause before Stephanie replied. "I don't believe you. Why would Mom lie about something like this?" Tom didn't respond, tossing his phone aside and burying his face in his hands. In the space of a few hours, his mother had not only stolen our future, but was now turning his sister against him as well. "What are we going to do?" I asked quietly, sitting beside him. He looked up, a new resolve hardening his features. "We're going to fight. For our money, for our future, and for the truth. I won't let her get away with this." By 8 a.m. the next morning, we were seated in a conference room at Horizon Global headquarters with an imposing group: Melissa from HR, the company's chief financial officer Gerald Walsh, the head of legal counsel Barbara Reynolds, and the company's head of security, a former FBI agent named Richard Donovan. We take this situation extremely seriously, Rebecca, Gerald began. Not only because of the substantial sum involved, but because this constitutes both theft and fraud against the company. Barbara nodded. I've reviewed the recording you provided. It's a clear admission of guilt and will be crucial evidence. The funds were company assets allocated for a specific purpose, which makes this a particularly serious matter. We've already frozen what remains in the relocation account, Richard added. And we're preparing to work with law enforcement on recovering the stolen funds. Melissa looked at us sympathetically. In the meantime, we need to address your immediate situation. You were scheduled to start in San Francisco next week. Gerald intervened. We'll extend your start date by 2 weeks, Rebecca. And we'll arrange temporary housing in San Francisco while this is being resolved. The company will front additional relocation funds, which will be reconciled once the stolen money is recovered. The relief that washed over me was profound. I had been worried not only about the theft, but about potentially losing the position I had worked so hard to attain. Thank you, I said sincerely. We appreciate the company's support during this difficult time. Tom, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. What exactly happens next? My mother has never faced consequences for her actions before. I'm concerned she'll find a way to avoid responsibility. Richard leaned forward. Mr. Mitchell, Horizon Global maintains a specialized financial investigation team precisely for situations involving misappropriation of company funds. They work alongside law enforcement, but can move more quickly in some respects. They'll be contacting your mother today to begin their investigation. She'll deny everything, Tom said. She already tried to claim Rebecca was lying. That's why the recording is so valuable, Barbara explained. And wire transfers leave a clear trail. If she used the money to purchase property, as she claimed, that creates additional documentation we can access through legal channels. We left the meeting with a plan in place. The company would handle the legal and investigative aspects while providing us with emergency funds to proceed with our move. The police had been notified and were coordinating with the company's team. Our immediate future was secure, even if the situation remained deeply painful. As we drove home, Tom's phone rang through the car speakers. Diana's name appeared on the display. Should I answer it? He asked, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. It's your decision, I replied softly. He took a deep breath and accepted the call. Yes, Mom. Thomas, what is going on? 2 police officers just came to the house asking questions about money transfers. They mentioned fraud. I told them there must be some mistake. It's not a mistake, Mom. You took our relocation money. You admitted it to Rebecca yesterday. That was a private conversation. She had no right to record me or share that with anyone. I'm your mother, Thomas. Are you really going to let your wife turn you against me like this? Tom's voice remained steady, though I could see the emotional toll this was taking. You stole $650,000 from us, Mom. Money that was meant for our future. You betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. Don't be so dramatic. I was trying to protect you from making a terrible mistake. California? Really, Thomas? Everything you need is right here. Your family, your roots. My wife is my family now, Mom. And you've put our lives in chaos. Diana's voice turned cold. So that's how it is? You choose her over your own mother and sister? After everything I've done for you. This isn't about choosing sides. This is about you committing a crime against us. A crime? It's a family matter. Keep the police out of this. It's too late for that. The company is involved now too. The money you took belonged to Horizon Global, not just to us. There was a long silence before Diana spoke again, her voice now trembling slightly. What exactly is going to happen? I don't know, Tom answered honestly, but you need to return the money immediately. All of it. I can't. The house has already been purchased. The money is gone. The call ended shortly after with nothing resolved. As we pulled into our driveway, another call came through, this time from Stephanie. "What have you done?" she demanded without preamble. Mom is absolutely distraught. "Stephanie," Tom began patiently, "Mom stole $650,000 from us. Money that was meant for our relocation to San Francisco. She said it was a gift. That you wanted me to have the beach house. Did that make sense to you? That we would give you a beach house instead of using the money to relocate for Rebecca's promotion." Stephanie hesitated. "Well, I thought maybe you felt guilty about moving so far away. And you didn't think to call and thank us directly? To confirm this extremely generous gift," Mom said, "she said you were busy with moving preparations and that she was handling it for you." Stephanie's voice had lost some of its certainty. "She lied, Steph. She stole the money and lied to you about where it came from." "I don't believe you," Stephanie replied, but her conviction sounded shaken. Later that evening, the doorbell rang. Two professionally dressed individuals stood on our porch, a man and a woman. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell?" "I'm Alicia Ramirez, and this is my colleague Marcus Wong. We're from Horizon Global's financial investigation team. May we come in?" Over the next 2 hours, they took detailed statements, reviewed the recorded conversation, and explained the process they would be following. "We've already traced the wire transfer through several accounts," Marcus explained. "The money was moved from your relocation account to a temporary account, then split into 3 separate transfers before being consolidated again for the property purchase." "That sounds complicated," I observed. Alicia nodded. "It suggests premeditation and an attempt to obscure the trail, not the actions of someone making an impulsive mistake." "Will you be able to recover the money?" Tom asked. "The funds used to purchase real estate are easier to recover than if they had been spent on consumables or transferred overseas," Alicia explained. "We'll be working with law enforcement to freeze the asset while the investigation proceeds." As they prepared to leave, Marcus turned to us. "We'll be visiting your mother-in-law tomorrow morning to formally interview her. Based on the evidence we've gathered, this will likely lead to criminal charges unless she agrees to immediate restitution. She claims the money can't be returned because the house has been purchased," Tom said. Marcus and Alicia exchanged glances. "The property can be liquidated or ownership transferred," Alicia explained. "There are options, but they all start with your mother-in-law acknowledging what she's done." After they left, Tom and I sat in silence for a long moment. Our home was half-packed, our lives in limbo, and the family Tom had grown up with was imploding. "I never thought it would come to this," Tom finally said. "I knew my mother could be difficult, controlling even, but theft? Deliberately sabotaging our future? I just can't comprehend it." I took his hand. People can convince themselves of almost anything if they believe they're justified. In her mind, she was probably protecting you from me, from California, from change. That doesn't excuse what she did. "No," I agreed. "It doesn't." Tom's phone buzzed with a text from his father. "Son, what's happening? Your mother is hysterical. Something about the beach house and the police." Tom showed me the message. "He probably has no idea what she's done." "You should call him," I suggested. "He deserves to know the truth." Tom nodded and stepped onto the back porch to make the call. Through the window, I could see his animated gestures, the slump of his shoulders, the moment he pressed his hand to his forehead in obvious distress. When he returned, his eyes were red. "Dad didn't know anything about it," he said quietly. "Mom told him the beach house was being purchased with money from her inheritance from Grandma Patterson. He's devastated." That night, we pushed 2 unpacked boxes off our bed and tried to sleep, both of us staring at the ceiling, wondering what the next day would bring. The following morning, Alicia called to inform us that the investigation team would be visiting Diana at 11 a.m. She invited us to be present if we wished. "Is that a good idea?" I asked Tom. "Won't it make things more confrontational?" Tom considered this. "Maybe, but I want to be there. I need to see her face when she can't deny it anymore." We arrived at Diana and Martin's Evanston home at 10:55 a.m. Martin answered the door, looking 10 years older than he had just days before. Tom. Rebecca. He embraced his son tightly. I'm so sorry about all of this. I had no idea. We entered the living room to find Diana perched tensely on the edge of the sofa. To my surprise, Stephanie was there as well, sitting in an armchair, her expression unreadable. What are they doing here? Diana demanded when she saw us. Martin, why did you let them in? Their family, Diana, Martin replied wearily. And we need to deal with this situation together. Before Diana could respond, the doorbell rang again. Martin returned with Alicia, Marcus, and 2 uniformed police officers. Diana's face paled. This is ridiculous. You're treating me like a criminal in my own home. Mrs. Patterson, Alicia began formally. We're here to discuss the unauthorized transfer of $648,721.57 from the Horizon Global Relocation account assigned to Rebecca and Thomas Mitchell. I don't know anything about that, Diana insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. Marcus opened his laptop. We have traced the wire transfer from the relocation account to a temporary account opened in your name at First Midwest Bank 3 days ago. From there, the money was divided into 3 separate transfers to different accounts, also in your name, before being consolidated again for a real estate purchase. All accounts were opened within the past week, all feature your signature on the documentation, and all required your driver's license as identification. Diana's composure began to crack. You have no right to look into my private banking information. We have a warrant, Mrs. Patterson, one of the police officers stated, producing the document. Based on the evidence of funds theft. Stephanie looked confused. Mom, what are they talking about? You said the beach house money came from you and Dad. It did, in a way, Diana said quickly. It's all a misunderstanding. Alicia turned to her laptop. Perhaps this will clarify things. She played the recording of Diana's call to me, her voice filling the room. I used your $650,000 relocation bonus to buy my daughter a beach house. You don't deserve it. Stephanie's eyes widened. Mom? Is that true? Did you steal Tom and Rebecca's money? I was protecting our family. Diana exclaimed. They were abandoning us for California. That money should have stayed in the family. It was meant for their relocation, Martin said quietly. For their future. A future away from us. Diana's voice rose. She's been taking him away piece by piece for years, and this was the final step. I couldn't let that happen. The room fell silent as Diana's justification hung in the air. Even she seemed to realize how it sounded. Marcus cleared his throat. Mrs. Patterson, the evidence clearly establishes that you accessed the Mitchell's relocation account without authorization and transferred company funds for personal use. This constitutes both theft and wire fraud. How did you even get access to our account? Tom asked, his voice strained. Diana looked away. I may have used Rebecca's laptop when I was helping you pack. The pieces clicked into place. Diana had helped us pack the home office 2 weeks ago, insisting she would organize all the papers while I packed the kitchen. She must have accessed my computer while I was busy elsewhere. You went through my computer? I asked, horrified. I was trying to protect my son. Diana repeated. Stephanie stood suddenly. The beach house isn't a gift at all, is it? It's stolen property. Her voice trembled. Do you know how humiliating this is? You told me it was a gift from Tom and Rebecca. I've been texting them thank you messages, planning a housewarming party. Stephanie, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Stephanie interrupted. You stole from Tom and lied to me. You've made me an accomplice in your theft. Diana's facade finally crumbled. I was trying to keep our family together. She's taking him to California. Don't you see what she's done? She's turned him against us. Mom, I chose to go to California, Tom said firmly. This was our decision, not just Rebecca's. And nothing justified what you did. Alicia intervened. Mrs. Patterson, We need to discuss how you intend to make restitution. The company is prepared to pursue criminal charges, but if the funds are returned immediately, there may be room for negotiation. I told you, I can't return the money. It's gone. The beach house is purchased. Then the beach house will need to be sold or ownership transferred to the company until other arrangements can be made, Marcus stated. No. Diana looked wildly around the room. Martin, do something. Martin shook his head slowly. There's nothing to do, Diana, except make this right. You took their money. It needs to be returned. Stephanie stood up. The beach house should go to Tom and Rebecca. It was purchased with their money. Stephanie, how can you take their side? Diana looked betrayed. I'm not taking sides, Mom. I'm acknowledging reality. Stephanie turned to Tom. I had no idea where the money really came from. I swear. Tom nodded. I believe you, Steph. Diana, seeing her family united against her, finally broke down. Fine. Take the beach house. Take everything. I was only trying to protect my family, but none of you can see that. One of the police officers stepped forward. Mrs. Patterson, we need you to come to the station to make a formal statement. Diana looked stunned. You're arresting me? Not at this time, but we do require a statement. As Diana was escorted out, she turned back to Tom. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? By choosing her over your own mother. Tom met her gaze steadily. You made the choice, Mom, when you decided to steal from us. I'm just dealing with the consequences. After Diana left with the officers, Martin collapsed onto the sofa, his head in his hands. I had no idea she would do something like this. No idea. Stephanie sat beside her father, placing a hand on his shoulder. None of us did, Dad. Alicia and Marcus explained that the property would be temporarily frozen while the legal details were worked out. We'll be in touch soon with next steps, Alicia assured us. As we prepared to leave, Stephanie pulled me aside. Rebecca, I'm so sorry. I should have questioned it when Mom said the beach house was from you and Tom. It didn't make sense, but I wanted to believe it. It's not your fault, I told her. Diana manipulated everyone. Stephanie nodded. I think I'm starting to see that. On the drive home, Tom was silent for a long time before finally speaking. I keep thinking about all the signs I ignored over the years. The controlling behavior, the manipulation, the way she undermined you at every turn. I told myself she meant well, that it was just her way of showing she cared. But this shows who she really is. I reached for his hand. People are complicated, Tom. Diana loves you in her way. She just doesn't know how to love without controlling. That's not love, he said firmly. And I won't let her hurt us again. The days following Diana's confrontation were a blur of legal meetings and logistical challenges. The company's legal team filed formal charges against Diana for theft and wire fraud, while simultaneously working to recover the stolen funds. Diana hired a prominent defense attorney who immediately began negotiating with the prosecutors. The evidence against her was overwhelming. The bank transfers with her signature, the recorded confession, her access to my computer, and even security footage from the banks where she'd opened the accounts. Meanwhile, we proceeded with our move to San Francisco, thanks to emergency funds provided by Horizon Global. The company had secured temporary housing for us in a corporate apartment while the situation was resolved. My start date was pushed back by 2 weeks, giving us time to settle and deal with the ongoing legal issues. Tom transferred to the Oakland office of his architectural firm, which welcomed him warmly. On the surface, we were proceeding with our plans, but the emotional toll was evident. Tom had trouble sleeping, often waking in the middle of the night to pace our temporary apartment. I would find him staring out at the San Francisco skyline, lost in thought. I keep thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't recorded that call, he confessed one night. She would have denied everything, made you look paranoid or vindictive. I might have even believed her. I wrapped my arms around him from behind, but you didn't. You stood with me. I'll always stand with you, he promised. No matter what. Back in Chicago, the family was in turmoil. Martin called Tom almost daily, sounding increasingly tired and stressed. Your mother is facing serious charges, he explained during one call. The prosecutor is talking about possible jail time. Her attorney is pushing for a plea deal, but she's still in denial about the seriousness of what she did. What about the beach house? Tom asked. Stephanie has signed papers to transfer ownership to you and Rebecca. She wants no part of it, says she could never enjoy it knowing where the money came from. This surprised both of us. Stephanie had always followed Diana's lead, rarely showing such independence. And how is Stephanie handling all this? I asked when Tom put the call on speaker. Martin sighed. She's moved out, got an apartment with a friend from work. Says she needs space from her mother. It's been difficult. Diana feels everyone has abandoned her. She abandoned us first, Dad, when she chose to steal our future, Tom pointed out. I know, son. I know. We learned that extended family members were taking sides in the conflict. Diana's sisters rallied to her defense, claiming we were overreacting to a family misunderstanding. Martin's brother, on the other hand, was firmly in our corner, having witnessed Diana's controlling behavior for years. The company arranged for us to see a counselor, recognizing the trauma of both the theft and the family betrayal. Dr. Lena Fisher specialized in family estrangement and betrayal trauma. What you're experiencing is a profound breach of trust, she explained during our first session. Tom, you're grieving the mother you thought you had, while simultaneously trying to process her betrayal. Rebecca, you're dealing with the vindication of your concerns about Diana after years of having them dismissed. These are complex emotional responses that will take time to work through. The sessions helped, providing a safe space to process our feelings and develop strategies for moving forward. Tom particularly struggled with guilt, wondering if he could have prevented the situation by setting firmer boundaries with his mother earlier. You can't take responsibility for her actions, Dr. Fisher reminded him. Diana made her choices. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Diana's case moved toward resolution. Her attorney negotiated a plea deal. She would plead guilty to theft, make full restitution, serve 2 years of probation, and complete 500 hours of community service. In exchange, the more serious wire fraud charges would be dropped, allowing her to avoid jail time. The judge was not lenient during the plea hearing, which we attended via video conference. Mrs. Patterson, the court recognizes your lack of prior criminal record and your agreement to make restitution, the judge stated firmly. However, I want to be clear that your actions constituted a serious breach of trust against your own family. This was not a momentary lapse in judgment, but a calculated series of actions intended to deprive your son and daughter-in-law of their future. The court views this betrayal of family ties as particularly troubling. Diana stood with downcast eyes as the judge continued. In addition to the terms of the plea agreement, this court orders you to undergo psychological evaluation and comply with any recommended treatment. You are also prohibited from contacting the victims except through your attorney until such time as they indicate a willingness to resume communication. The beach house was officially transferred to our names, though neither of us felt any joy in the acquisition. We listed it for sale immediately, intending to use the proceeds to repay the company and finally complete our intended relocation plans. Stephanie reached out to us independently after the hearing. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she told us over a video call. About Mom, about how she's influenced my life and relationships. I never realized how much I was living in her shadow, accepting her view of everything. Including you, Rebecca. What do you mean? I asked. Mom always painted you as this career-obsessed woman who didn't really care about family. Who was taking Tom away. And I believed her without ever really getting to know you myself. She looked genuinely remorseful. I'm sorry for that. It's not entirely your fault, I offered. Diana is persuasive. She's manipulative, Stephanie corrected, surprising me with her candor. And I'm just starting to understand how much she's manipulated all of us. Tom maintained limited contact with his mother, speaking to her only through her attorney initially. Diana sent a formal letter of apology as part of her plea agreement, but it rang hollow, focusing more on her intentions than the harm she had caused. I only wanted to protect our family unit, she wrote. I hope someday you'll understand that my actions, while perhaps misguided, came from a mother's love. Tom showed me the letter, then crumpled it and threw it away. That's not an apology. That's justification. Martin, meanwhile, seemed to be reassessing his own role in enabling Diana's behavior over the years. He visited us in San Francisco 2 months after our move, staying in a nearby hotel. Over dinner at our new home, purchased with the proceeds from selling both our Chicago property and the beach house, he appeared more relaxed than I had ever seen him. I enabled her, he admitted after a glass of wine. All these years, I looked the other way, made excuses, kept the peace at any cost. I should have set boundaries long ago. Maybe then it wouldn't have come to this. You can't blame yourself, Dad, Tom said. I don't entirely. Diana is responsible for her own actions, but I'm responsible for mine, and I should have done more to protect you both. He looked directly at me. Especially you, Rebecca. I saw how she treated you, and I said nothing. I'm sorry for that. What happens now? I asked. With you and Diana? Martin sighed. I don't know. We're in counseling, both together and separately. Diana's therapist has suggested she may have narcissistic personality traits that have gone unaddressed her whole life. It explains a lot, but it doesn't excuse anything. He looked out at the San Francisco view from our dining room. I love her, but I don't like who she's become. Or maybe who she's always been. By the 6-month mark, Diana had completed a quarter of her community service hours, working at a women's shelter. According to Martin, the experience was humbling for her, exposing her to women who had genuine problems far beyond her own. The beach house sold for slightly more than had been paid for it, allowing us to fully reimburse the company and finally settle into our new life. I thrived in my new position, leading a successful rebranding campaign that earned recognition throughout the industry. Tom's architectural work in Oakland connected him with innovative firms doing sustainable design, a passion he had long wanted to pursue. Stephanie visited for a week in the spring, her first trip to California. Without Diana's influence, she was different, more relaxed, funnier, and genuinely interested in getting to know me. We took her to wine country, hiked in Muir Woods, and spent evenings on our deck overlooking the city. By the time she left, something new had formed between us. Not quite friendship yet, but the potential for it. I actually like her, I told Tom after dropping her at the airport. Who knew? He smiled. I always thought you two might get along if Mom wasn't in the middle. Diana remained the unresolved question in our lives. Her therapist had suggested a mediated family session, but Tom wasn't ready. Maybe someday, he told me. But not yet. The wound is still too fresh. I understood. Some betrayals cut too deep for quick forgiveness. Trust, once shattered, could take years to rebuild, if it ever fully did. 6 months turned into a year, and gradually our new life in San Francisco eclipsed the trauma that had preceded it. The beautiful Edwardian in No Valley truly became our home, filled with new furniture, new memories, and none of the shadows from our past. My role as marketing director exceeded all expectations. I led a team of talented creatives who responded well to my collaborative leadership style. Our campaigns increased market share by 22% in the first year, earning recognition from industry publications and competitors alike. The CEO personally commended me during the annual shareholders meeting, citing our division's innovative approach. Tom flourished at the Oakland firm, which specialized in sustainable commercial architecture. His designs for a zero-carbon office building earned an architectural award and led to a promotion to senior designer. He came home energized, eager to share ideas and sketches, a passion I hadn't seen in him during his final years in Chicago. The company implemented new security protocols for relocation funds based on our experience, creating a multi-factor authentication system that required biometric verification for large transfers. They asked me to share our story during new employee orientation as a cautionary tale about cybersecurity, though I kept the personal details vague out of respect for Tom. Tom established clear boundaries with his mother. They spoke monthly by phone, conversations that remained civil but distant. Diana had completed her community service hours and continued therapy, which Martin reported was making a difference, though slowly. "She's beginning to understand the damage she caused," he told Tom during one of their weekly calls. The therapist says narcissistic patterns are deeply ingrained and take time to unlearn, but she's trying. Stephanie had fully emerged from her mother's shadow. She left the boutique job, completed a digital marketing certification, and secured a position with a Chicago agency. We exchanged regular texts and occasional video calls, sharing professional advice and gradually building the relationship that Diana had previously prevented. Diana's first attempt at a genuine apology came 13 months after the incident. Not through a court-mandated letter, but in a handwritten note sent directly to our home. "I've been working with my therapist to understand why I did what I did," she wrote. "The truth is painful to acknowledge. I was terrified of losing control over Tom, over our family unit. Each step he took toward independence felt like rejection to me, and I couldn't separate my needs from his happiness. What I did was unforgivable, and I don't expect forgiveness. I only want you both to know that I am truly sorry for the pain I caused. I recognize now that my actions were about my fears and insecurities, not about protecting Tom as I claimed." Tom read the letter several times before carefully folding it and placing it in his desk drawer. "It's a start," he said simply. That spring, Martin suggested a small family gathering at a neutral location, a restaurant in Napa Valley, halfway between San Francisco and the airport where he and Diana would fly in for a weekend. Tom was hesitant, but ultimately agreed. "We don't have to forgive her," I reminded him. "We're just having dinner." The meeting was awkward but civil. Diana looked older, the stress of the past year evident in new lines around her eyes and mouth. She made no excuses, no justifications for her actions, which itself represented growth. "Your home looks lovely," she said after we showed her photos. "The light in that living room is beautiful." "Thank you," I replied, the simple exchange feeling like a milestone. We established a new normal. Holiday calls, occasional visits with Martin acting as buffer, gradual steps toward a relationship built on healthier foundations. Trust would take much longer if it ever fully returned, but the acute pain of betrayal slowly dulled into a manageable ache. One unexpected outcome of the experience was my involvement with a women's professional network that supported females facing family challenges during career advancements. Many women, it turned out, encountered resistance from family when pursuing opportunities that required relocation or significant change. None had experienced theft, thankfully, but the underlying issues of control, guilt, and sabotage were common. My mother-in-law called my boss to tell him I was pregnant before I was ready to disclose it, one woman shared during a meeting. She thought it would make them reconsider my promotion. My parents refused to speak to me for months after I moved across the country for a VP position, another confessed. They said I was abandoning them in their old age. I was 32 and they were in their 50s. These stories reinforced what our experience had taught us, that family dynamics can be complex obstacles to professional growth, particularly for women. I found purpose in mentoring others through these challenges, sharing strategies for establishing boundaries while maintaining relationships where possible. Tom's relationship with his father strengthened considerably during this period. Without Diana controlling their interactions, they discovered shared interests and perspectives. Martin visited quarterly, sometimes without Diana, enjoying long conversations with Tom about everything from architecture to philosophy. I feel like I'm getting to know my father for the first time, Tom remarked after one such visit. All those years, Mom was always there, directing every conversation, controlling how we interacted. As our second anniversary in San Francisco approached, we faced a new question. Were we ready to start a family of our own? The trauma of Diana's betrayal had put those discussions on hold, but now, with our careers established and our lives settled, the possibility reemerged. What if I turn into my mother? Tom asked one night as we discussed the idea. What if those controlling tendencies are in my DNA? You're nothing like her, I assured him. You've never tried to control me or anyone else. Besides, the fact that you're even asking the question shows you're self-aware in a way Diana never was. We decided to try, committing to conscious parenting that would break any unhealthy patterns from our families of origin. We would create our own traditions, our own boundaries, our own definition of family. The final piece of healing came unexpectedly during a visit from Stephanie. Sitting on our deck, watching the sunset over the city, she turned to us with sudden emotion. I need to apologize properly, she said. Not just for believing Mom about the beach house, but for years of following her lead in how I treated you, Rebecca. I was jealous of you, of the life you and Tom built, of your career success. Mom encouraged that jealousy, fed it, used it to keep me on her side. I'm ashamed of who I was then. The sincerity in her voice brought tears to my eyes. Thank you for saying that, Stephanie. It means a lot. I've realized something important this past year, she continued. Mom's need for control wasn't protection, it was about possession. She treated us like extensions of herself, not as independent people with our own needs and dreams. She looked out at the darkening sky. I don't want to live that way anymore. That night, lying beside Tom in bed, I reflected on how far we had come from that terrible day when we discovered the missing money. The theft had nearly destroyed our plans, our family relationships, and our sense of security. Yet somehow, through the pain, something valuable had emerged: truth, boundaries, and authentic connections free from manipulation and control. I never would have chosen this path, I whispered to Tom in the darkness. But I'm proud of how we've walked it. He pulled me closer. Me too. The journey had taught us that sometimes the most painful betrayals can lead to the most necessary growth. Diana's actions had forced issues into the light that might otherwise have festered in darkness for decades. The family that emerged from this crucible was changed forever, but perhaps ultimately healthier for having faced the truth. Looking back, I realized that the moment I responded to Diana's shocking confession with calm acceptance, thanks for letting me know, I had already begun reclaiming my power. Not through anger or immediate confrontation, but through the quiet strength of someone who knows their worth cannot be diminished by another's actions. That worth, that inner strength, is something no one can steal, not even with $650,000. What would you do if a family member betrayed your trust in such a profound way? Would you try to rebuild the relationship, or would you establish permanent boundaries? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complex family dynamics. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the most painful experiences lead to the most meaningful growth.